Jian Wushuang. He had disappeared for a year. Now he suddenly showed up again? He even came to our Holy Emperor Palace. He's actually attacking our palace on his own. How dare he? The palace master of Holy Emperor Palace coldly stared at Jian Wushuang, who was standing on the holy steps with a soaring sword essence. Though he said those words, the palace master did not dare to underestimate Jian Wushuang's power. Go inform the 4 holy masters. Be quick, the palace master ordered. They immediately followed his order. Jian Wushuang looked indifferent, as did his 2 sword soul phantoms. Ignoring the great shock in their eyes, Jian Wushuang raised his head and stared at the great palace gate. Then he stepped on the second step. Crack! The second step instantly cracked while the first step ruptured. Jian Wushuang's aura was already quite strong. Yet, as he took the second step, his aura soared once again. Then he continued, stepping onto the third step. All the spectators fixed their eyes on Jian Wushuang. Outside of Holy Emperor Island, a void suddenly appeared and a huge wormhole formed. It was created by the space travel spell. The space travel spell was rare and precious in the Nanyang continent. Normally, even top sects were unwilling to use it, but they made an exception today. A dozen figures walked out of the wormhole. They all had great auras. A middle-aged man in a purple robe led these Saint Realm experts. He was the alchemy school sect master Wang Yan. Wang Yuan was also here. Let's go! The experts of the alchemy school left for Holy Emperor Island. Besides the alchemy school, the 3 valleys and 4 temples, and the 8 sects also received the news. They all came here using space travel spells. There were even some solitary experts. The wine master arrived with his disciple Yang Zishuan. After a while, countless experts had gathered near Holy Emperor Island. They all watched Jian Wushuang walking on the holy steps. Many young warriors who took part in the selection for Holy Emperor Palace looked at those experts in shock. So many experts. I don't feel any aura from many of them. They must be experts of the Saint Realm. So many Saint Realm experts. The young warriors were stunned. Saint Realm experts were top experts in the Nanyang continent. Even a large sect only had a few of them. It was rare to meet such an expert, but now, there were more than 50 Saint Realm experts suspended in the sky. What did that mean? Had that happened before on the Nanyang continent? All of this was because of one person. That person was Jian Wushuang. Third brother. Wang Yuan had a serious expression as he looked at Jian Wushuang. A man with a sword dared to attack Holy Emperor Palace. No matter what happens, his courage will leave a mark in the history of the Nanyang continent. Wang Yan wore a faint smile with a flicker of craftiness in his eyes. 2 figures stood side by side at a corner of the group. You are not going to help your brother? Wine Master asked casually. I am not able to help him with my current strength, Yang Zishuan replied. Oh, you do know yourself. Wine Master had a faint smile on his face as he replied. On the holy steps, Jian Wushuang had not stopped climbing. Every time he took a step, his aura would increase a bit. When he stepped onto the 50th step, his aura was strong enough to shock everyone that was present. 4 figures appeared at the palace gate. They were the backbone of Holy Emperor Palace, the 4 holy masters. He is Jian Wushuang? A silver-haired elder narrowed his eyes and looked toward Jian Wushuang. He was first holy master. That's him. Second holy master stood beside first holy master and stared at his enemy with a hint of ferociousness in his eyes. As an overlord of Nanyang, Holy Emperor Palace had abundant resources, so they had purple fire body-shaping elixirs. After the last fight at Skyward Mountain, Second Holy Master ate a purple fire body-shaping elixir, allowing him to regrow his severed legs completely. His aura seems much stronger than a year ago, Second Holy Master said coldly, but he was shocked. A year ago, Jian Wushuang split his magic weapon and cut off his legs. The battle strength he released at that time was already frightening. However, now the boy's aura had terrified him. It's only been a year, but his strength improved yet again? First Holy Master's face fell. He immediately gave an order. Activate the protective array. The protective array? Many of the experts in Holy Emperor Palace were stunned. The protective array of Holy Emperor Palace would only be activated when Holy Emperor Palace faced a big crisis and was not able to fight. But now, they activated the protective array just because of Jian Wushuang. "Go, right now!" First Holy Master shouted. Yes. The expert did not dare to disobey his order, and immediately went to activate the protective array. After a while, a surge of great power rose from the palace and a transparent energy barrier appeared in front of the palace gate. Protective array? Holy Emperor Palace activated their protective array? How could that be possible? A large number of spectators froze in shock. Activating the protective array represented that Holy Emperor Palace was facing a powerful enemy. But, at the moment, Jian Wushuang was here by himself and had not made a move. Only he himself was strong enough to force Holy Emperor Palace to activate their protective array. That's Jian Wushuang. The younger warrior's eyes sparkled as they felt the blood racing through their veins. Jian Wushuang still continued slowly climbing the holy steps. Eventually, he reached the 108th step and appeared in front of the palace gate. The black-robed Jian Wushuang stood there with his long sword on his back. Now, he could see some buildings inside Holy Emperor Palace and a huge stone tablet in front of the palace gate. The stone tablet was engraved with 3 words, Holy Emperor Palace. The experts of Holy Emperor Palace stood in front of the gate while coldly staring at him. 50 feet away from those experts, Jian Wushuang was being blocked by a transparent energy barrier. A protective array? Jian Wushuang looked at the barrier with his lip curled. Then, the triple-kill sword appeared in his hand. The 2 towering sword soul phantoms behind him also held long swords. As his sword essence and aura reached their peak, a surge of battle intent flashed in his eyes. Then he launched an attack. He focused all his sword essence and aura into one spot as he attacked. The 2 sword essence phantoms behind him also attacked with their long swords. A faint hum of the air being pierced could be heard, but no sword light or sword shadow emerged. The stroke seemed ordinary. Suddenly, boom! A loud boom roared and a large dent appeared in the transparent energy barrier. Obviously, it was a sword scar. The protective array started trembling and roaring. A surge of power erupted in the dent, causing the sound of it piercing the air. Then suddenly, boom! The transparent energy barrier ruptured. It was broken. The protective array had been smashed to pieces. How could this be possible? All the spectators, including the 4 holy masters, widened their eyes. The protective array of Holy Emperor Palace was considered the toughest and the most powerful array in the whole Nanyang continent. But just now, it was smashed by a single stroke. What did that mean? Jian Wushuang held the triple-kill sword while releasing a soaring killing intent. Faced with the broken protective array, he just sneered. Now that he had reached Venerable Master, he possessed a marvelous body. His first-grade magic weapon, the triple-kill sword, was also powerful. However, the most important factor that allowed him to break it with one stroke was the sword move he used. It was the first move of the heart-killing sword technique. Jian Wushuang spent a lot of time and energy on it and eventually mastered it. The first move was called Traceless. The heart-killing sword technique was the most powerful sword skill Sword Ancestor had created. The power of the first move was stronger than that of any other first-grade sword technique. He had a powerful body. With the help of heavenly creation skill, he would be a dozen times stronger than an ordinary expert of the Saint Realm when his strength erupted. Furthermore, he used a first-grade magic weapon and performed his strongest sword skill. With all of this combined, the protective array of Holy Emperor Palace could not block the terrifying stroke. Now, Holy Emperor Palace had lost its protection. The moment Jian Wushuang held the sword in both hands, a soaring killing intent suddenly swept out and he struck another blow. This casual stroke moved toward the huge stone tablet, slashing through it. Shwa! The stone tablet, representing the root of the sect, was split in half. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang's cold voice resounded through the whole area. After today, Holy Emperor Palace will no longer exist on the Nanyang continent. One sentence was articulated forcefully. They all trembled with shock. At this moment, the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, including those 4 holy masters, wore a cold look on their faces. First Holy Master, who stood at the center of the crowd, glared at Jian Wushuang while saying 2 words. "Kill him." The moment he finished his words, an overwhelming killing intent swept out. Upon hearing this, killing intent gushed out from the elders of the Saint Realm. Then they dashed out and attacked Jian Wushuang from all directions. These 18 people were truly experts of the Saint Realm. They worked together to perform a formation. That is, Aeon Devil-killing formation. A loud shout suddenly arose from the spectators. The Aeon Devil-killing formation was a famous formation in the Nanyang continent. Could be performed by a group of 9 or 18 warriors. Normally, if the Aeon Devil-killing formation was displayed by 9 experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm, they could fight against an expert of the Saint Realm. If it was performed by 18 experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm, they could defeat and even kill an expert of the Saint Realm. But now, 18 Saint Realm experts were performing the formation. Many experts present immediately understood how powerful it would be. Damn it! A blue-robed woman appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. She was holding a Saiyan longsword, which was filled with a great power. When she slashed toward Jian Wushuang, a surge of tremendous power gathered onto this Saiyan longsword, soaring to an incredible level. Aeon Devil-killing formation could combine the power of 18 experts, which meant each move they displayed would have the strength of 18 experts. The blue-robed woman's attack was filled with the power of 18 experts. The sword light lashed out with a power that shook the whole area. The blue-robed woman was a Saint Realm expert who had mastered 3rd stage domain, but the stroke she launched was even more powerful than Second Holy Masters. However, Jian Wushuang looked indifferent and calm. As the sword light pierced through the air and appeared before him, he immediately reached out with his left hand at a lightning speed to catch the blade. Clang! A metallic sound rang out. The blue-robed woman was suddenly stunned. Many spectators, including the 4 Holy Masters, also froze in shock. Jian Wushuang directly grabbed the blade of the Saiyan longsword, which contained the full power of 18 experts. Despite the overwhelming power of the longsword, Jian Wushuang held the blade tightly. The longsword was a 2nd-grade magic weapon, but it could not even seem to hurt Jian Wushuang. How is that possible? Everyone was dumbstruck. The whole area became silent. How it could be? The blue-robed woman widened her eyes and stared at Jian Wushuang. Then a hint of coldness flashed in her eyes. Go to hell! A sudden surge of energy was emitted from the Saiyan longsword, which then changed into sharp spines and shot towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised, but he just closed his eyes and let the spines crash against his body. Clang! 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 The continuous crashes resounded through the air. Each spine could easily kill an ordinary Saint Realm expert, but they did not work against Jian Wushuang. His body was like an indestructible gem, so the collision just caused sparks to fly in all directions. The blue-robed woman was completely petrified. The sword strike she had performed with her full strength had been caught by Jian Wushuang using only a single hand. Now, the countless spines did not even puncture his skin. That boy! Second Holy Master was shocked. He still remembered when he tried to kill Jian Wushuang. After the boy's strength suddenly erupted, he could barely prick the boy's skin with his strongest move, Scarlet Thunderbolt. Such a powerful body. It was indestructible. While the blue-robed woman was in a daze, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and glanced at the woman. Then he quickly stretched out his left arm, grabbed the woman's neck, and raised her up. The blue-robed woman was terrified. Her neck was currently being grasped by Jian Wushuang so tightly that she felt as if her strength was of no use and she was completely unable to resist. As Jian Wushuang exerted more strength, crack! The blue-robed woman's neck broke and her breath instantly disappeared. Then her body was tossed onto the ground below. When the woman died, the Aeon Devil-killing formation began to collapse. Force of Gale and Thunderbolt began to surge inside Jian Wushuang's body. Shwa! He moved so fast that no one could see his body. They all watched a lightning pass by 2 experts of the Saint Realm. Then Jian Wushuang reappeared with the triple-kill sword in his hand, scarlet blood dripping from his sword. The two experts of the Saint Realm widened their eyes as blood began dripping from the sword scar left on both of their necks. Shua! Then Jian Wushuang easily flashed by 3 other Saint Realm experts, killing them before they even had an opportunity to struggle. Shua! Shua! Lightning emerged and flashed through the air. Chi! 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 The sound of bodies being cut was heard in quick succession, striking terror in their hearts. Run! A forlorn cry came out. Then, the surviving Saint Realm experts started running back towards Holy Emperor Palace in panic. Asshole! Shocked and angry, First Holy Master let out a snarl and moved forward. Boom! He launched an attack, his huge palm print covering the whole sky. Jian Wushuang, who was hunting these experts of Holy Emperor Palace, raised his head and immediately flashed through the huge palm, splitting it in two. This attack gave several experts enough time to run toward the 4 Holy Masters and escape death. In the blink of an eye, among the 18 Saint Realm experts who made up Aeon Devil-killing formation, 13 experts were killed and only 5 survived. Silence. The whole area became silent at this moment. Countless experts and a large number of young warriors watched in shock as a dozen Saint Realm experts fell from the sky. They all widened their eyes and felt terrified. Too strong. A young warrior could not help but speak. This caused the whole Holy Emperor Island to become heated. Of the 18 experts, 13 were killed. Were they really experts of the Saint Realm? Legendary experts of the Saint Realm were killed so easily? Just like a rooster being killed. A year ago, when Jian Wushuang reached Venerable Master, he cut off the legs of Second Holy Master with a single stroke. His battle strength had been far superior to an ordinary Saint Realm expert. Over the past year, he had obtained great opportunities in the Ancestors' Land and reached pinnacle of the Saint Realm. His battle strength had improved greatly. With the help of his perfect body and heavenly creation skill, he could kill a Saint Realm expert who mastered domain as easily as butchering a rooster. The Aeon Devil-killing formation was really powerful, but once it collapsed, it was easy for Jian Wushuang to kill them. This is the number 1 genius on the Nanyang continent, Jian Wushuang. His battle strength is too terrifying. He is much stronger than an expert of the Saint Realm, and even the 4 Holy Masters. I'm afraid that, on the Nanyang continent, only the mysterious monarch of the Tang dynasty could defeat him. Holy Emperor Palace is in danger this time. Holy Emperor Palace is in danger this time. The words resounded in all the hearts of the spectators, as well as the experts of Holy Emperor Palace. The protective array had already been broken. The Aeon Devil-killing formation, consisting of 18 Saint Realm experts, collapsed and 13 of them were killed. It seemed that only the 4 Holy Masters were qualified to block Jian Wushuang. At this moment, they all fixed their eyes on the 4 Holy Masters. The 4 Holy Masters all wore a grim look. As First Holy Master took a step forward, the other 3 Holy Masters followed. They stood side by side, in front of Jian Wushuang, as 4 powerful streams of aura began to emanate from them. First Holy Master's aura was the most powerful, far superior to the other 3. For Holy Masters, the whole Holy Emperor Island became quiet. All the spectators stared at the 4 Holy Masters in awe. The 4 Holy Masters had a great reputation. Holy Emperor Palace had been the top sect for thousands of years, with many top experts in their long history. But it was the 4 Holy Masters that helped Holy Emperor Palace reach its real peak. The 4 Holy Masters all reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. Especially First Holy Master, he was a complete monster. The alchemy school had been placed at a disadvantage, simply because they did not have an expert who could fight against First Holy Master. Now, these 4 experts, who represented the supreme battle strength of Holy Emperor Palace, came out to fight. They teamed up with each other to fight this enemy. "Please try your best to help me kill the boy," First Holy Master said in a low voice. Upon hearing this, the other 3 Holy Masters nodded heavily. Then, boom, 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 they directly rushed forward. For Holy Masters, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and gazed at his opponents, who were all supreme existences in the Nanyang continent. Now he needed to fight all four of them. "Come on," Jian Wushuang said with a cold look. A surge of overwhelming battle intent rose from within him. Whoosh! Second Holy Master was the first to strike a blow against Jian Wushuang. "Boy, go to hell!" Second Holy Master looked ferocious. He held a blood-red giant hammer, which was a second-grade magic weapon that weighed over 5,000 kilograms. But he easily swung the giant hammer as if he was holding a goose feather. Scarlet waves lashed toward Jian Wushuang. When Jian Wushuang raised his hand, preparing to parry it, Fourth Holy Master, who stood opposite him, suddenly let out a snarl, causing a hail of terrifying sound waves to sweep forward. The sound waves tried to pierce through Jian Wushuang's body, but his body was too strong and seemed indestructible. It only made Jian Wushuang pause for a short time before he continued to lift his long sword. The giant hammer smashed against the triple-kill sword. Boom! A terrifying boom was heard as the overwhelming power erupted. Second Holy Master attacked from above, which placed Jian Wushuang at a disadvantage. Under the influence of the sound wave, Jian Wushuang had to lean back. Jian Wushuang suddenly felt a flow of cold aura behind his back. His expression changed. Force of gale and thunderbolt gushed out as he stepped back. Then a streak of black light happened to pass by his waist. After he regained his balance, Jian Wushuang realized it was a black dagger, covered with black venom. A cold woman held the dagger while staring at Jian Wushuang with hostility. She was Third Holy Master. "Nice try," Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. He suddenly raised his head and saw the spectral image of a huge beast. It was an enormous demonic ape which was hundreds of feet tall. Its body almost seemed to cover the whole sky, and First Holy Master stood at the center of the demonic ape phantom. Along with his soaring aura, the silver-haired elder had sparks of killing intent in his eyes. In an instant, the demonic ape moved, appearing before Jian Wushuang. First Holy Master, wearing a pair of pitch-black gloves, clenched his right fist and began gathering a stream of terrifying power in his right hand. Origin of all beasts. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. He had once fought with an expert who mastered Origin of all beasts. Such experts were adept at close fights. "I'm not afraid of a close fight," Jian Wushuang roared. He withdrew his triple-kill sword as a surge of power gathered in his hands. His body changed into lightning and rushed forward. He released several punches using only his bare hands. With his outburst of strength and spiritual power, every stroke he launched was extremely powerful and terrifying. First Holy Master's fists, wrists, knees, and even fingers became magic weapons. Like a real giant ape, he was fighting with Jian Wushuang in close combat. Boom! 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 Violent booms reverberated throughout the whole area. Each confrontation caused invisible waves to spread out. A big storm of energy formed in the surrounding area. After Jian Wushuang and First Holy Master had more than 100 confrontations, suddenly, whoosh! Jian Wushuang shot back hundreds of meters. After stabilizing his body, he looked at himself. His clothes were ragged, exposing his strong muscles, copper-colored skin, and countless marks that were left on his body. The marks were all caused by fists or elbows. Only a single palm print was left on First Holy Master's body. But First Holy Master looked pale. "I've comprehended Origin of all beasts, and I excel at close combat. Yet, the dozen strokes I landed on him did not hurt him at all. On the other hand, I was injured by a single attack from him. His body is too strong." First Holy Master stared at Jian Wushuang with a cold look. He had to admit that Jian Wushuang had a powerful body. Jian Wushuang's body could protect him from a dozen face-to-face attacks. "First Holy Master, you live up to your name, ranking number 1. You're much stronger than the other 3 Holy Masters," Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile, while he watched First Holy Master, who was standing opposite him, being surrounded by the other 3 Masters. "However, if your strength is just this, you cannot protect Holy Emperor Palace." The moment he finished his words, a surge of killing intent rose from him. Then, a vast blood river flowed out at an amazing speed. Azura's secret skill, Road to the Underworld. The turbulent river soon covered an area over a radius of 1,000 meters, with the 4 holy masters stuck inside. The 4 holy masters frowned as they felt the overwhelming power of the blood river. Be careful. This blood river is like domain, so it can greatly suppress us, second holy master said seriously. He had experienced the power of Road to the Underworld, so he knew. While Road to the Underworld was pervading the whole area, slaughter domain started sweeping out as well. Even a faint flow of sword essence began to emanate from Jian Wushuang. The layer of sword essence was like invisible waves, full of terrifying power. It was the first-grade sword technique, Multifold Realm, which Jian Wushuang had practiced inside Sword Tower. As a first-grade sword technique, it was enigmatic. Jian Wushuang had just mastered the first move, the First Realm. The power of the First Realm was far superior to Sword C. The combination of 3 techniques, Road to the Underworld, First Realm, and Slaughter Domain. Suppress! Jian Wushuang shouted in a low voice. Shua! The blood river tumbled, with waves violently lashing the surroundings. Its great power suppressed the 4 holy masters, causing them to stop for a while. Their expressions changed. How powerful! First holy master looked solemn. We cannot move freely in the blood river. Even I can only display 70% of my strength. First holy master, who was the most powerful among them, had 30% of his battle strength suppressed, while the other 3 holy masters had half of their strength suppressed. How is this possible? Second holy master widened their eyes in shock and said, Last time I met him, his blood river realm barely suppressed 10% of my strength, but now, it's half of my strength. Even though he has reached the Saint Realm, the power of his blood river should not have improved to such an extent. He did not know that blood river's power improved greatly because of First Realm. Regarding the power of the 3 domains in the previous combination, Road to the Underworld ranked first, Slaughter Domain ranked second, and Sword C ranked third. As for the current power of 3 domains he was using, Road to the Underworld was still first, but First Realm was stronger than Slaughter Domain. While the 4 holy masters felt awful under the influence of Blood River, Jian Wushuang, and his 2 sword soul phantoms, exuded a powerful battle intent. Soon after, Jian Wushuang began to move. Bang! His first step caused the air to tremble, and a flow of pressure swept out. The triple-kill sword, which was filled with a great amount of sword essence, appeared in his hand again. An overwhelming spiritual power gathered in his hand and his body's strength reached its peak. Then Jian Wushuang violently slashed at First Holy Master. The move he performed came from a first-grade sword technique, Dragon-Killing Sword Technique. The stroke was obviously powerful. The sword light lashed out, humming as it moved through the air. First Holy Master was shocked by it. He immediately clenched his fists as his huge demonic ape phantom grew immensely. Then it let out a snarl and launched 2 punches. At the same time, the other 3 holy masters also attacked. Second holy master waved his heavy blood-red hammer, scarlet energy gushing out, smashing downward as if a towering huge mountain was falling. Third holy master wore a cold look as black light gathered in her hands. She also launched an attack using her black dagger that was covered in venom. Fourth holy master's eyes widened like copper bells. He waved his huge saber and hacked forward with enough power that he could easily split a mountain. The 4 holy masters attacked with their most powerful moves. Even though they were being suppressed by Blood River, they still managed to release overwhelming power. In an instant, their 4 strikes collided with the boys. It was a head-on confrontation. He was fighting with 4 experts of the Saint Realm. As a result, the sword light changed into a raging giant dragon before the collision. The giant dragon roared with an overwhelming momentum and smashed against the 4 attacks. Then it transformed into a gust of wind and blew the 4 holy masters back. Jian Wushuang was able to defeat the 4 holy masters by himself. When the 4 holy masters retreated, Jian Wushuang rushed forward at lightning speed, appearing in front of his opponents. Not good. Fourth holy master looked at the boy in terror. Jian Wushuang grinned and began to swing the triple-kill sword. Hua! Within the brilliant sword light, there was vast killing intent. Fourth Holy Master was still violently retreating. Facing against the brilliant sword slashed from Jian Wushuang, he had no ability to resist at all. The sword light inexorably swept over Fourth Holy Master, whose eyes were filled with a thick unwillingness. Yet, his breath still began to dissipate. Fourth brother. First Holy Master turned pale with fear. However, Jian Wushuang's figure flickered once again, like a ghost, then stopped in front of the cold woman. Having personally witnessed the scene of Fourth Holy Master being beheaded by Jian Wushuang with a single sword move, her face suddenly turned pale when Jian Wushuang appeared in front of her, following which her eyes became crazy. Die! The cold woman clenched her teeth tightly. The black dagger in her hand, which was coated with a virulent toxin, turned into a dark gleam, piercing violently through the air. With this attack, the cold woman was using all of her strength. This was the most powerful attack she could display. However, Jian Wushuang casually swung his sword. The sword light and the black dagger collided head-on, causing the two mighty forces to burst out at the same time. Clang! A low and heavy crashing noise was heard. The cold woman's face suddenly changed. She just felt a terrifying force sweep past her, and she knew she was definitely unable to block it. The black dagger in her hand was immediately knocked away. However, the sword light still swept towards her arm without any sign of its power diminishing. Hua! A horrific slaughtering force erupted. The cold woman's arm was directly shredded by the bursting slaughtering force, but the sword light continued to sweep along her arm, moving towards her upper body, where it immediately penetrated her chest. A large amount of flesh and blood spilled out as the cold woman's breath also instantly disappeared. Third sister. First Holy Master's eyes widened with anger at this scene, but Jian Wushuang grinned at him, his figure once again flickering like a ghost. Second brother, retreat, retreat. First Holy Master roared with a shrill cry. He was not afraid of Jian Wushuang's attack. Although he could not compete against Jian Wushuang, he still had the ability to defend himself. But the other three Holy Masters could not. Two of them had already been killed in an instant, with only Second Holy Master remaining. He did not want Second Holy Master to die at Jian Wushuang's hands. Second Holy Master was indeed cunning. As soon as Jian Wushuang killed Fourth Holy Master, he was already aware of the trouble he was facing, so he immediately fled. When Jian Wushuang decided to kill him, after slaughtering Fourth Holy Master and Third Holy Master, he had fled beyond the perimeter of the Blood River. Without Blood River's oppression, his speed was no longer being affected, so he could run even faster. Even Jian Wushuang could not kill him in the first place. Second Holy Master fled to First Holy Master's side. The two looked extremely pale as they stared at Jian Wushuang. With the triple kill sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang stood at the center of the Blood River, like a sword god from ancient times. As for the experts who were watching, as well as the young warriors who came to participate in the selection, all of them were currently holding their breath. When they saw Jian Wushuang suddenly rush out, defeating the four Holy Masters in one single sword move, followed by killing two of them, one after the other, the atmosphere surrounding Holy Emperor Island became utterly chaotic. Holy Master! The four Holy Masters of Holy Emperor Palace had always been unattainable and almost invincible in the eyes of everyone on the Nanyang continent. But now they watched as Jian Wushuang, a single person, fought against the four Holy Masters and killed two of them, one after the other, in a short period of time. This overwhelming and incredible scene shocked everyone. The young fighters were even more excited. Their feelings of worship towards Jian Wushuang reached an unprecedented level. On the other hand, the warriors from Holy Emperor Palace all looked pale and bloodless. Haha! Holy Emperor Palace is finished. Wang Yuan, who was among the experts from the alchemy school, was extremely excited at that moment. He shouted with a smile. Wang Yan, who was beside Wang Yuan, slightly shook his head upon hearing this and said, "Not necessarily. Not necessarily." Wang Yuan frowned, then quickly turned to face him. Father, even the four Holy Masters, who are the strongest in Holy Emperor Palace, had been defeated by third brother. He even slaughtered 2 of them. Who could possibly stop him? Third brother will definitely uproot Holy Emperor Palace. You are underestimating Holy Emperor Palace? Wang Yan glanced at Wang Yuan and said in a low voice, if their strength was so simple, our alchemy school would not be so scared of them. What do you mean? Wang Yuan's face turned gloomy. Just watch. Wang Yan did not explain too much. However, your brother is really strong and determined. He seems to have already suspected that the Holy Emperor Palace is not as simple as it seems. So, from the beginning, he has been holding back his strength. Third brother isn't using his full strength? Wang Yuan was stunned, but he continued watching. Many experts of Holy Emperor Palace had gathered at the front gate. But, at the moment, all of them had extremely ghastly expressions as they stared at Jian Wushuang, who had a cold look on his face. Behind him were 2 giant, sword-wielding, spectral images that were radiating a monstrous sword essence. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang moved his feet, slowly walking forward. Step by step, he slowly advanced towards Holy Emperor Palace. Dong! 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 His heavy footsteps were like drum beats in the hearts of all the experts from the Holy Emperor Palace, gradually making their hearts sink to the bottom of the abyss. What should we do? Holy Master, what should we do? Some of the elders shouted at the 2 Holy Masters. First Holy Master and Second Holy Master both looked sullen and desperate. Even though his heart was full of unwillingness, First Holy Master knew that he could not stop Jian Wushuang on his own. But at this moment, Jian Wushuang, who was slowly walking towards the Holy Emperor Palace, suddenly stopped and looked up, staring at the area above the entrance to Holy Emperor Palace. He had noticed something. There was a figure slowly stepping towards him. His pace was slow and light, but every step covered a long distance. In the beginning, he had been far off in the distance, but he quickly stepped past the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, appearing in front of Jian Wushuang. He was currently standing 30 meters in front of Jian Wushuang. This man was very young, with a handsome face. He wore a gold robe and looked quite gentle. But the most remarkable thing about him was the horrid and bloody sword scar between his eyebrows. The gold-robed young man stood calmly in front of Jian Wushuang, not radiating even the slightest aura. He just looked at Jian Wushuang, with a playful smile on his face. Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly widened the moment he saw this young man. This man is the last line of defense for Holy Emperor Palace. Even just calmly standing there, the golden-robed young man attracted everyone's attention. Who is he? All the experts, including the warriors from Holy Emperor Palace, were puzzled. Obviously, the golden-robed young man came from Holy Emperor Palace, but his existence was unknown, even to the palace master and those elders. Only the first and second Holy Masters were pleasantly surprised by his arrival. Master Zhou Xiu. First Holy Master and Second Holy Master hurriedly saluted the young man. The way they addressed him left everyone stunned. Master Zhou Xiu? They addressed this golden-robed young man as master? How could that be? A horrified expert exclaimed immediately. The Holy Masters and Holy Emperor Palace have such a high status, especially First Holy Master. He has always been the second highest figure on the Nanyang continent. Throughout the entire Nanyang continent, who is qualified to be called Master by him? Master was the address for a stronger expert. Being called that by First Holy Master carried a lot of meaning. Master Zhou Xiu? Is there such a person in Holy Emperor Palace? First Holy Master called him Master. How strong is this Zhou Xiu? Everyone who heard it was amazed. The experts from the Holy Emperor Palace, who had become as pale as the dead, had rekindled their hope at this moment. They did not know who this Master Zhou Xiu was, and they had never seen him before, but Master Zhou Xiu was obviously on their side. While everyone was staring at the golden-robed young man, Jian Wushuang's eyes were also fixed on this Zhou Xiu, a young man with a sword scar between his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. Previously, when his father told him how Bloodfeather Tower annihilated the G-clan, he mentioned that it was not just the experts from Bloodfeather Tower, but also a young man with a sword scar between his eyebrows that had killed their people. It was this young man who took away his mother as well as his father's sword soul. Obviously, the man who had taken away his mother and father was the golden-robed young man standing in front of him at this moment. With a slight smile on his lips, the golden-robed young man looked up at the two giant sword soul phantoms behind Jian Wushuang and smiled coldly. Even though the bloodline of the sword ancestor has declined to such a level, you still managed to awaken double sword souls. Your talent is really good. I guess you are even better than your father. If I can take away all your sword souls, then my harvest should be impressive. You want to take away my sword soul? That will depend on whether you have the ability. Jian Wushuang's voice was also extremely cold. Meanwhile, his strength suddenly soared. Behind him, the sword essence gathered by the two sword soul phantoms was also increasing. The dialogue between the two did not conceal anything. It resounded throughout the area, but the experts who heard it were all puzzled. Bloodline of the sword ancestor? Sword soul? What's that? Even though there were many experts present, the number of Saint Realm experts didn't amount to more than 50 people. Some of them were even well informed, but no one had ever heard of the sword ancestor's bloodline or sword soul. Master Zhou Xiu, this Jian Wushuang possesses a monstrous strength, which is beyond what our Holy Emperor Palace could cope with. Master Zhou Xiu, please kill him for us. First Holy Master said respectfully. Even if you didn't say that, I would deal with him. The golden-robed young man said indifferently. A purple long sword, with a weak aura, appeared in his hand. It was an ordinary third-grade magic weapon. Zhou Xiu's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived next to Jian Wushuang. At the same time, the purple long sword lightly slashed toward Jian Wushuang. How fast? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Zhou Xiu was so fast that even Jian Wushuang was horrified, and the sword that Zhou Xiu wielded was incomparably mysterious. When the sword slashed out, Jian Wushuang felt as if he was being suppressed from every direction. He wanted to escape, but his body couldn't seem to move. It was like this sword had completely locked him in place. His origin comprehension is much better than mine. Jian Wushuang was secretly surprised. As soon as Zhou Xiu displayed his skill, Jian Wushuang immediately understood that Zhou Xiu's cultivation was still within the Saint Realm. On top of that, his level of power was far worse than Jian Wushuang's, but the young man's origin comprehension was far above him. As the sword light drew near, Jian Wushuang realized he was unable to dodge. Hence, he gave up escaping and faced it directly, brandishing his triple-kill sword, which radiated a monstrous rage. Clang! Although the sound was very light, a low and heavy crash was heard when the two collided. Boom! Boom! Two shocking sword lights immediately appeared and shot down towards the ground. Boom! Clang! There was a violent rumbling on the ground as a huge crack, spreading hundreds of meters, appeared, seeming to split the ground in half. At the same time, the other sword crack swept towards the gate of Holy Emperor Palace, even reaching some buildings inside the palace. Boom! A loud roar was heard and a large number of buildings were directly smashed, mercilessly killing many disciples of Holy Emperor Palace who were near or still inside the buildings. Up in the air, both Jian Wushuang and Zhou Xiu retreated at the same time. He is only in the Saint Realm, yet his strength is so powerful? Zhou Xiu looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise, then grinned and said, "This is interesting." At this point, Zhou Xiu stepped forward again. Zhou Xiu immediately closed the distance, appearing in front of Jian Wushuang once again. With the purple long sword still in his hand, he casually attacked again. But this time he struck 3 times in quick succession. Hua! 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 The 3 sword lights were surprisingly fast and extremely subtle. Jian Wushuang's face turned solemn as he immediately swung the triple-kill sword. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive clashes were heard. Among the 3 sword lights, 2 were parried by Jian Wushuang, while the other one struck his body, leaving a clear bloody mark on his chest, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat in an explosive and disgraceful manner. Once he regained his balance, Jian Wushuang looked at the blood mark on his chest, which was actually bleeding. He was injured. This was the first time that he has been injured since he became a venerable master and improved his body. Previously, during the hand-to-hand fight against First Holy Master, when tens of attacks landed directly on his body, it only left behind some marks, which quickly dissipated without leaving a single injury. Now, even though the sword light displayed by Zhou Xiu barely broke his skin, it was still true that he had been injured. I landed a direct hit, but it only barely broke his skin. How can his body be so strong? Zhou Xiu looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Even he had never heard of such a strong body. Jian Wushuang, however, just looked solemn. His perception of the origin and comprehension of sword principle are far above mine, and the sword skill he wields is monstrous. Yet, his basic strength is very common, only at the level of ordinary Saint Realm warriors. They had only just started fighting, but Jian Wushuang already had some understanding towards Zhou Xiu's strength. If we compare skill, I am not his opponent, so I'll have to rely on absolute strength to crush him. Jian Wushuang's eyes were flashing. Azura secret skill. Bridge of helplessness. There was a loud rumble. Then a turbulent blood river appeared. On the edge of the blood river, a long blood bridge extended to the end of the blood river. While standing above the blood river, Jian Wushuang began to move forward, step by step, with his aura growing, just like an Azura. The triple kill sword in Jian Wushuang's hand also radiated a monstrous rage before slashing out a moment later. The two sword essence phantoms behind him also attacked with their long swords. There was no sound. It was not even visible to the naked eye. But this seemingly invisible strike made Zhou Xiu's pupils suddenly shrink. This is the heart-killing sword technique? Zhou Xiu was not unfamiliar with Sword Ancestor's strongest sword skill. At this moment, what Jian Wushuang displayed was obviously just the first move of the heart-killing sword technique, traceless. No shadow, no trace. Under the full force of Jian Wushuang's bridge of helplessness, the power of this blow was even more earth-shattering. Even Zhou Xiu didn't dare to be careless at this moment, so he immediately used his sword to defend. Bang! A violent roar resounded. Two terrifying powers collided explosively. The constant sword light that was being released seemed like it could easily cut anything in half. It's amazing. You can even use the Sword Ancestor's famous sword skill. Zhou Xiu was staring at Jian Wushuang with sparkling eyes. Is it? However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly smiled coldly. Then, a bright light appeared between his eyebrows. The area between his eyebrows seemed to be split, and a sword essence, which gave even the spectators an eerie feeling, violently rushed forward like a thunderclap. The appearance of this sword shadow was so sudden that even Zhou Xiu was not able to react immediately. Mind's eye sword technique. Zhou Xiu recognized Jian Wushuang's sword skill, but he was only barely able to move his body aside at the last moment. The incomparably fast sword essence directly struck his shoulder, leaving behind a gaping hole. Zhou Xiu's figure was also violently forced backwards by this sword essence in a completely ungraceful manner. However, once he regained his balance, the countless experts in the area were shocked by what they saw. They were surprised because there was a gaping hole, the size of a bowl, in Zhou Xiu's shoulder. This would not be a minor wound for anyone, and there should have been a lot of blood flowing from the wound. Yet, at this moment, they did not see any blood gushing from Zhou Xiu's shoulder. What they saw was dark molten iron moving slowly inside the hole. That is, the countless experts in the area were stunned. He was clearly injured, but there was no blood. Instead, there was a lot of molten iron. Is he human? After seeing this, Jian Wushuang's pupils also shrank as he mumbled, "Puppet fighter?" There was no blood, no flesh, and no organs. The Zhou Xiu in front of them was not a human at all. He was a puppet fighter. If I didn't guess incorrectly, you're from that place? Staring at this Zhou Xiu in front of him, Jian Wushuang said in a low and heavy voice, "The Divine Land. The Divine Land?" As for the experts who were watching, as well as the young warriors who came to participate in the selection, all of them looked puzzled. They had never heard of this Divine Land. Only some of the old monsters present, as well as those who held high positions, such as the sect master of the alchemy school, immediately became serious when they heard him mention the Divine Land. The Divine Land, the legendary continent at the center of this world and a haven for experts. Wang Yan murmured. As the sect master of the alchemy school, Wang Yan knew about the existence of the Divine Land. He knew that this world he was in was huge, but 99% of it was covered by vast seas. Spread throughout the vast seas, there were pieces of land, of which the Nanyang continent was only a very common piece. In addition to the Nanyang continent, there were many similar lands in this world that were also filled with warriors. Naturally, there was no lack of experts. However, the real core of the world was the Divine Land. It was said that the vast territory of the Divine Land was far superior to the Nanyang continent. Owing to its core location in the world, the spiritual energy there was purer and more abundant than in other places. Therefore, cultivating in the Divine Land better than anywhere else. Therefore, the number of the experts in the Divine Land was something that the Nanyang continent could not compete with. Using a metaphor, the Nanyang continent was like an ordinary stream, while the Divine Land was a vast sea. There was no comparison. Many old monsters on the Nanyang continent, whose strength had reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm and had become peak experts on the Nanyang continent, would go to the vast Divine Land once they felt there was nothing left for them to pursue on the Nanyang continent. In the history of the alchemy school, there had been several peak experts who had gone to the Divine Land. As for Jian Wushuang, after his strength reached a certain level and he developed a deeper understanding of the ancestors' land, he realized that the Sword Ancestors' bloodline was so marvelous that a small place like the Nanyang continent could not contain it. Hence, Jian Wushang had suspected that there was a vast world beyond the Nanyang continent. As for his actual knowledge on the existence of the Divine Land, he read about it in the letter his father left him. The letter mentioned that his father had left the Nanyang continent and gone to the Divine Land. The Divine Land was a place where experts gathered. At its peak, the Sword Ancestors' bloodline was one of the overlords on the Divine Land. The force that had destroyed the Divine Land had also been located on the Divine Land. As for the Joshio in front of him, no matter if it was perception of the origin, the sword skills he displayed, or the technique he had used to take away Jian Nanshan's sword soul, all of them were beyond the scope of the Nanyang continent. Therefore, Jian Wushuang was certain he came from the Divine Land. And it is very likely that he came from the force that had destroyed the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor. As for Holy Emperor Palace, it was only a chess piece used to prevent the growth of the Sword Ancestor's bloodline. Hearing what Jian Wushuang said, Joshio gave him a non-committal smile. Obviously it meant he tacitly approved. He really came from the Divine Land. It's too bad. I planned to kill you and take away your double first-grade sword souls. But now it seems I've failed. Looking at his body, Joshio shook his head. You're at the peak among warriors at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. As for my puppet fighter, it is too weak to display my full battle strength, so it is unable to kill you. It was just a common Saint Realm puppet fighter, constructed using special means so that he could control it his own consciousness. Therefore, he couldn't display his full power with the puppet fighter. Against Jian Wushuang, whose body was so powerful it defied common sense, with strength at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, there was nothing he could do right now. It seems I have to wait for my next visit to the Nanyang continent to take away your sword soul, said Joshio. No need, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Soon, I will be heading to the Divine Land to kill you. Kill me? Joshio sneered and said, You? Yes. Jian Wushuang looked at the puppet with a steadfast gaze and spoke in a forceful voice. Ha ha. Joshio laughed loudly as if he had just heard a hilarious joke. A person of narrow view. Do you think you're still considered a top expert in the Divine Land? Ridiculous. In the Divine Land, there are plenty of ants like you. How could an ant kill me? Hearing this, many of the spectators were shocked. Among the people here, Jian Wushuang was absolutely recognized as the strongest on the Nanyang continent. However, he was just a weak ant in Joshio's eyes. But Jian Wushuang didn't get angry when he heard that. Instead, he raised his head, stared at Joshio, and said, in a deep voice, Joshio, there is a saying, maybe you've heard it. Joshio turned towards Jian Wushuang. Fortune is variant. Don't look down on me just because I'm weak right now. Jian Wushuang's words spread. It has been 7 years since the first time I successfully gathered spiritual power and became a warrior. At that time, even Blood Feather Tower, an assassin organization in our weak dynasty, was an overwhelming force for me, let alone Holy Emperor Palace. However, after a few years passed, I destroyed Blood Feather Tower. Today, Holy Emperor Palace, which is much stronger than Blood Feather Tower, will be destroyed by me as well. Did you ever expect that to happen? You never know what will happen. Now I'm a nobody. But 7 years from now, what will I become? Jian Wushuang spoke confidently in a clear, strong voice. Numerous experts there admired and agreed with him. He was confident he should be. Since he cultivated the heavenly creation skill, nothing was impossible. On top of that, he had even received gifts from the ancestors' land. These benefits allowed him to have limitless potential. It had only taken him 7 years to go from the lowest level warrior to someone who shocked the whole Nanyang continent. Who would dare to look down on his potential? Fortune is variant. Since you've said so much, I will wait for you. A cruel light flashed in Joshio's eyes. These simple words were a direct challenge. After that, Joshio's consciousness vanished from the puppet fighter. Just before vanishing, he smiled and said, "By the way, I almost forgot to tell you. Your mother has really missed you all these years." Haha, his consciousness vanished and his puppet fighter immediately fell down powerlessly. Jian Wushuang was shivering with fury, but the light in his eyes was determined and strong. "I promise. I will go to the divine land. Joshio, wait and see." Up in the air, it took Jian Wushuang quite a while to calm himself down. At which point he turned towards the experts of Holy Emperor Palace. At that very moment, all the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, including those 2 holy masters, looked pale. No one expected Joshio to be forced to give up his puppet fighter. But, even though it was strong, it could do nothing to Jian Wushuang. That meant Holy Emperor Palace had also been abandoned. To Joshio, Holy Emperor Palace was just a pawn, so he didn't care about them at all. When Jian Wushuang looked at them, eyes full of killing intent, First Holy Master was terrified and trembled. He took a deep breath, then shouted, "Elders of Holy Emperor Palace." They turned to face First Holy Master. "Run! Even if only a few of you can escape." Then he looked at Second Holy Master and they both rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Not only were these experts shocked and stunned, they also looked pale. But only a few of them chose to run away. Most of them followed behind the 2 holy masters and rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had no mercy on them at all. He had easily defeated all 4 holy masters without using his full strength. Now that he was no longer holding back his full strength, regardless of whether it was First Holy Master, Second Holy Master, or the other Saint Realm experts, no one could stop him killing them all. A massacre. Ruthless slaughter. Blood sprayed everywhere, filling the air, and a chilling atmosphere surrounded Holy Emperor Palace. The massacre lasted for 2 hours, after which Holy Emperor Palace quieted down. Jian Wushuang, bearing the long sword on his back, walked out of the Holy Emperor Palace with no sign of his furious aura remaining. In the surrounding area, many experts looked at him, filled with terror, fear, admiration, and even worship. It had been 2 stunning hours to them. But it was a nightmare for Holy Emperor Palace. Holy Emperor Palace became a demonic hell during those 2 hours. After the battle, all 4 holy masters had been killed. The palace master and many elders had also been killed by Jian Wushuang. Only a few of the senior experts managed to run away and survive. As for the disciples of Holy Emperor Palace, Jian Wushuang only killed those who decided to live or die together with Holy Emperor Palace. As of now, Holy Emperor Palace, which had been an overlord on the Nanyang continent for thousands of years, had been destroyed. Inside an exquisite courtyard, Jian Wushuang sat at a stone table with Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan. Even though he had already destroyed Holy Emperor Palace, the expression on his face was still quite cold. Holy Emperor Palace was just a puppet sect, controlled by Joshio and the force behind him. They were Jian Wushuang's real target. However, he had a long way to go. "Big brother, second brother, drink a little wine with me." Jian Wushuang turned his hand over. Then a wine pot and several cups appeared on the table. "This wine isn't 3-day drunk again, is it?" asked Wang Yuan, a little crossly. "Air." Jian Wushuang was stunned at first, but then he smiled. That smile broke the ice. After a drink, Wang Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, "Third bro, now that Holy Emperor Palace has been destroyed, what do you plan to do next?" "I want to go to the Divine Land," Jian Wushuang said. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan were surprised. "The vast Divine Land," exclaimed Wang Yuan. He had just heard of the Divine Land from his father. The Divine Land has a lot of experts, and Saint Realm experts are normal in the Divine Land. Compared with the Divine Land, the Nanyang continent is just a tiny area. But I believe Third Brother will be able to accomplish big things there. Jian Wushuang softly smiled at him. "The Divine Land is a haven for experts. Even my master wants to go there. I plan to go as soon as I reach the Saint Realm," Yang Zixuan said seriously. "You too?" Wang Yuan had a sad smile while listening to them. "Both of you have high talent, so it's easy for you to reach the Saint Realm. However, with my strength, it will be hard for me to go there." Wang Yuan's talent in cultivation was not as strong as the other three, but his talent in alchemy was exceptional. "By the way, what about fourth sister?" Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan came here when they heard that he was going to destroy Holy Emperor Palace, but he didn't see Su Rou. She. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan remained silent. "What's wrong?" Jian Wushuang frowned. "The thing is," Wang Yuan said, "not long after your fight against Second Holy Master, an old woman came to her saying that she was her family and she would take her home." "Family?" Jian Wushuang was surprised. She had a family at one time, but hadn't her family been killed? "I didn't believe her at first, but the old woman was able to turn her pupils red, just like fourth sister," said Wang Yuan. "Blood-red pupils?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. "Yes, the old woman is unfathomable, and fourth sister said she felt close to the elder, as if they were family. So she agreed to go with her," said Wang Yuan. "Is that it?" Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. "Fourth sister's physique is unique. If the elder said she was her family, it must be because of her physique." Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan were chatting. Suddenly, "Jian Wushuang!" A gentle voice echoed throughout the area and Jian Wushuang heard it. Right away, the three of them went outside, where a white-bearded elder was floating and waiting. His mild face was smiling and his eyes lit up like a starry sky. Jian Wushuang was stunned upon seeing him. He was sure that he hadn't met this elder before, but he felt like the elder was close and unfathomable. "May I know who you are?" Jian Wushuang looked at him and asked respectfully. "My last name is Gu. I have come to you under Our Lady's order," answered the elder. "Lady?" Jian Wushuang was curious. "Her last name is Lung. That might help you remember," the white-bearded elder said while smiling. Jian Wushuang understood immediately. "Lung, that should be Lung Rushuang and Lung Rushua. Our Lady needs your help, so I hope that you can take a trip with me," the white-bearded elder said. "Sure." Jian Wushuang nodded. He owed Lung Rushuang a favor, so he should pay her back. "Please follow me," said the white-bearded elder. Jian Wushuang said goodbye to Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan and then followed after him. In the nature residence, Tang Dynasty. Jian Wushuang was familiar with it. After all, he had lived here for 1 month. In front of a bamboo house, a cold beauty, Lung Rushuang, sat on a bamboo chair. A nifty young girl, Lung Rushuang's sister, Lung Rushua, stood beside her. When she saw Jian Wushuang walking towards them, Lung Rushua smiled and said, "Brother, you have come." Jian Wushuang. Lung Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang and said, "It hasn't been long, yet you have reached divine transcendence and even destroyed the overlord of Nanyang, Holy Emperor Palace. Amazing. You flatter me. May I know why you invited me here?" Jian Wushuang said modestly, "I need your help." After saying that, Lung Rushuang glanced at Lung Rushua. Lung Rushua was a clever girl, so she stuck her tongue out and then left. Only Jian Wushuang and Leng Rushuang remained. Please sit down. Leng Rushuang waved her hand and a bamboo chair appeared. Jian Wushuang sat down. There is a poison called icy heart poison in my body. Looking at Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang said openly, the poison is closely related to my cultivation method and my body. I have tried many different methods, but I failed to detoxify it, so I used a special method to seal it. However, I was unable to seal it completely. Even now, there is still a small amount of poison remaining in my body that I can do nothing about. Icy heart poison? Jian Wushuang was shocked to his core. He had never heard of this poison. But it should be an abnormal poison if an expert like Leng Rushuang couldn't deal with it. If you can't do anything, even with your power, how can I be of help? Jian Wushuang asked. I once tried to cure you with icy heart force when you were chased by Tan Feng and mortally wounded. However, as soon as the icy heart force entered your body, it was devoured by a more powerful force. Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang and said. Jian Wushuang stared at her. Surely it was because of heavenly creation skill. At that point, I realized that your cultivation method was extraordinary. Leng Rushuang said coldly, since it can devour icy heart force, I suspect that it may also work on the icy heart poison that is formed by the icy heart force. You mean, you want me to drive the icy heart poison out of your body? Jian Wushuang frowned. Yes. Leng Rushuang nodded. The idea occurred to me when I realized you have an extraordinary cultivation method, but you were not strong enough at the time. Now that you have reached the Saint Realm, I think you can do it. What should I do? Jian Wushuang asked. Instead of answering him, Leng Rushuang extended her hand and rolled up her sleeve, showing him her white arm. There was a piece of milky white skin near her shoulder. The ghostly skin was a hideous white, just like a bone. Leng Rushuang raised her head and looked at Jian Wushuang. You just need to use your cultivation method and force it out my arm. That's it. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Of course not, Leng Rushuang said. Icy heart poison is the strongest poison known to man. An ordinary person will die if they even touch it, but you need to absorb it into your own body and then refine it, which means my icy heart poison will be transferred to you. Your cultivation method is strange. It easily devoured my icy heart force, so it should be able to refine the icy heart poison as well. However, this is just a guess, so I'm not sure. Once you begin, if you can't refine the icy heart poison, you will die. Jian Wushuang was astounded. He had just asked if it was simple, but now he realized it wasn't simple at all. He was walking the path to hell. If he was even slightly careless, or if he couldn't refine the icy heart poison, the only thing awaiting him was death. With that said, you should take this time and carefully think about whether you're willing to try. If you don't want to help me, I will not force you, Leng Rushuang said. I don't need to think about it. I'll do it. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate. Are you sure? Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. It was dangerous and no one knew what would happen. Anyone else would have taken time to think about it, but he didn't even frown. I'm sure, Jian Wushuang said with a laugh. He was confident because of his cultivation method. The heavenly creation skill had never disappointed him. Moreover, he owes Leng Rushuang a favor. Let's start, Jian Wushuang urged. Leng Rushuang took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and nodded. Jian Wushuang immediately began to circulate the heavenly creation skill. Spiritual power gathered in his palm and then spread out to cover the ghostly white skin on Leng Rushuang's arm. The instant his spiritual power came into contact with her skin, Jian Wushuang felt a white energy wiggling around like billions of worms. This white energy was the icy heart poison. What a frightening poison! Seeing the white energy, Jian Wushuang couldn't help feeling terrified. He had some minor experience with poison in the past, but compared with the icy heart poison, they were insignificant. The terrifying, ice-cold white energy in Leng Rushuang's arm was slowly spreading. Jian Wushuang believed that even a little bit of this white energy could easily freeze a Saint Realm expert and turn them into powder. It was just a tiny portion of the icy heart poison. Most of it had been sealed by Leng Rushuang. Be careful, reminded Leng Rushuang. It made Jian Wushuang feel strange. He thought of Lung Rushuang as someone who was always cold as ice. But today, perhaps because he was willing to help her, Lung Rushuang was treating him much better. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, then concentrated on the white energy. He began circulating his spiritual power according to the heavenly creation skill, while slowly moving towards the white energy. As soon as they made contact with each other, it was like his spiritual power took a bite of the white energy and swallowed it. It was only a small portion, about the size of a fingernail. However, when it entered Jian Wushuang's body, he immediately felt as if his body was frozen. For a moment, even his breathing and his heartbeat stopped. Refine! Hurry! Refine it! Jian Wushuang quickly circulated the heavenly creation skill, and a surge of spiritual power rushed towards the icy heart poison. Fortunately, the heavenly creation skill did not let him down. The icy heart poison was tyrannical, but the heavenly creation skill was even more domineering. Although the icy heart poison in his body fought back violently, it was quickly suppressed before eventually being refined. Did it work? Lung Rushuang stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and winked at Lung Rushuang as a smile spreading across his face. A moment later, Jian Wushuang carefully extended his hand. There was a drop of ghostly white liquid floating in his palm. This was the refined icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang flipped over his other hand and took out a jade bottle, then dropped white liquid into the bottle. However, as soon as it entered the bottle, bang! The jade bottle exploded. His mouth spasmed. That jade bottle was made of spiritual jade. Not only was it valuable, it was also the highest quality bottle he owned. However, it could not endure the terrifying coldness that radiated from the poison. Use this one. Lung Rushuang flipped her hand over and took out a transparent jade bottle, then handed it to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and accepted it. This time, when he dropped the white liquid into the jade bottle, nothing happened. Seeing that, a twinkle flashed in his eyes. A good bottle. Jian Wushuang broke into a smile. This was definitely something good. Since icy heart poison was virulent, the venom refined from it should be useful. Go on, said Lung Rushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded and then continued devouring and refining the icy heart poison from Lung Rushuang's arm. After gaining experience from the first time, the subsequent attempts were much easier. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. 12 drops. After the last drop fell into the jade bottle, a smile broke out on Jian Wushuang's face. The last of the icy heart poison in Lung Rushuang's arm had finally been refined, and her arm was getting much better as well. Thank you, said Lung Rushuang, as she pulled down her sleeve. Jian Wushuang shrugged and smiled, then said, I can only refine the icy heart poison that leaked out. There is nothing I can do about the poison that is sealed. I understand. Lung Rushuang nodded. Then she flipped her hand over, took out a jade slip and said, Take this. If you are in danger, break it and I will try my best to help you. Oh, Jian Wushuang was curious, but he didn't take it. The icy heart poison in my body is still leaking, so I might need to ask for your help again. I don't want you to die before then. Jian Wushuang smiled and took it. I'm leaving. Jian Wushuang didn't need to stay any longer. Since he had already refined Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison, he left the nature residence. After leaving, he went directly to the Tianzong dynasty. He would be leaving Nanyang continent to go to the Divine Land soon. Before that, he had a lot of things to do. In the imperial palace of the Tianzong dynasty, a black figure appeared in the air over the palace, surrounded by a transcendent aura. Are you Jian Wushuang? A mild voice was heard. Then a red-robed man appeared. Following him was the monarch of Tianzong dynasty, Di Shi. Hong Shuzi. Jian Wushuang looked at him calmly. Jian Wushuang recognized him. He was the founding emperor of the Tianzong dynasty and the creator of the formless sword art. Di Shi. Jian Wushuang greeted him. Di Shi bowed slightly to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang destroyed Holy Emperor Palace on his own. It had spread throughout the Nanyang continent, with both Hong Shuzi and Di Shi hearing about it. The Jian Wushuang of today was no longer the callow boy of the past. Now, he was recognized as a powerful force on the Nanyang continent. Even it was them, they behaved gingerly while facing Jian Wushuang. Seniors, I have come today to ask for a favor. Would you be willing to take care of Sword Marquee Mansion for me? Jian Wushuang asked directly. Take care of Sword Marquee Mansion? Hong Shuzi realized, you're going to the Divine Land, aren't you? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Then he reached out and handed him an interspatial ring. The assets in the ring are for you. Hong Shuzi took it and said, smilingly, rest assured, the Tianzong dynasty will protect Sword Marquee Mansion. Thank you. If something happens that you can't handle, please send a message to the young master of the alchemy school, Wang Yuan, Jian Wushuang said. After saying that, Jian Wushuang left. Next, he went to Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace was the same as before. To Jian Wushuang's huge relief, Palace Master White, who left Dragon Palace to help him deal with Bloodfeather Tower, went back to Dragon Palace and took back her Palace Master position again after Bloodfeather Tower was destroyed. Dragon Palace was still the holy place for cultivators in Tianzong Dynasty. In a branch of the Gladiator Arena in Tiannan Province, a white-robed, middle-aged man was reading a thread-bound book in a study room. He was one of the two men in charge of the branch of Gladiator Arena in Tiannan Province. Dong! Dong! Someone knocked and then a golden-robed servant walked in. Lord Supervisor, someone sent you an interspatial ring. The golden-robed servant respectfully gave it to him. Oh! The white-robed gentleman raised his eyebrows and took the ring, but his eyes opened widely after a glancing at the contents. It's a purple fire body-shaping elixir. The middle-aged man was shocked. He subconsciously touched his armless sleeve. This purple fire body-shaping elixir could reform his missing arm. Was it him? The middle-aged gentleman raised his head, showing his handsome face with a smile on his mouth. The gentleman was someone who had once helped Jian Wushuang immensely, Bai Chong. He lost an arm while holding back the assassins from Bloodfeather Tower for Jian Wushuang. Now, Jian Wushuang had repaid his kindness with a purple fire body-shaping elixir and some highly sought-after treasures for people in the Yinyang Void Realm. Jian Wushuang's next stop was Sword Marquee Mansion. It was in midnight and the Sword Marquee Mansion was quiet. Jian Wushuang wandered through the mansion alone, looking at the familiar surroundings. He saw the sword pavilion where he once lived. He wandered around all night, alone and unnoticed, until the next morning. When the sun finally began to rise, he departed. Inside the alchemy school, Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan had gathered together. Ha! Third bro. Today we won't stop drinking until we're drunk, Wang Yuan said and laughed. Good luck. I will go there and look for you soon. Yang Zixuan looked at Jian Wushuang. Okay. Cheers. Jian Wushuang raised his glass. The three brothers continued to drink for one whole day and night. 2 days later, all the arrangements had finally been completed. At the very edge of the Nanyang continent, near the Endless Sea. Now that Sword Marquee Mansion is in order, I have nothing left to worry about. So, standing at the shore, Jian Wushuang looked out at the Endless Sea in front of him. The Divine Land. It lies at the very center of this sea. The land of experts. At its peak, the bloodline of Sword Ancestor was an overlord of the Divine Land. Father also went to the Divine Land. Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of excitement and expectation. Without any hesitation, he flew directly towards the Endless Sea. Divine Land, located at the center of the world, known as the Land of Experts. It's much more vast than the Nanyang continent, with many more experts as well. But life here is even harder than in Nanyang. The clear sky was as pure as a porcelain plate. However, under such a clear sky, a fierce fight was taking place on a piece of land near the boundless sea. Lei Yun, take Miss Lanner and escape. We'll hold them off. Run now. A desperate roar resounded through the air. On the side the roar came from, there were 4 guards and a cyan-dressed lady, who was somewhat pretty. She seemed to possess a bit of a heroic spirit as she tightly gripped her aquamarine longsword. On the other side was a group of black-robed men, all wearing black masks. From the looks of it, There were dozens of them, all with a strong aura. Especially the leader, who was a half-saint. At this moment, 3 of the guards swallowed an elixir that could temporarily double their strength at the cost of their lives, attempting to hold off all the black-robed men. But, unfortunately, some of their enemies managed to break through and chase after the lady and the guard. "You won't be able to escape." The killing intent of the half-saint leading them continued to surge forward. The lady and the guard, a burly middle-aged man with purple hair, had a grave look on their faces as they tried to escape. "Damn! We're just out on an ordinary trip, why are we being targeted? We didn't do anything to draw attention, did we? Who are these black-robed men, and who sent them?" The purple-haired man roared, with a twisted expression on his face. As for the lady, though she looked pale, she managed to stay calm. "Few in my family knew my whereabouts. Among those who were informed about this trip, the only one that might try to kill me is her," the lady said in a cold tone. "Miss, you believe she ordered these men to kill us?" the purple-haired man asked with a stunned look on his face. "She is the only one who desperately wants me dead," said the lady. "Damn!" The purple-haired man was livid and clenched his fists. "We're still far from our residence and we're slower than these guys, so we'll probably be killed before we make it back. There's no way we will survive if we keep rushing towards home," the lady pondered while glancing around. Finally, her eyes fell on the sea in the distance. "Right now, there is only one way can save ourselves," the lady said with a glint of frenzy in her eyes. "Uncle Lay, follow me." Having said that, the lady headed towards the sea. "Miss, what do you?" The purple-haired man was confused, but he quickly understood her intent. He gritted his teeth and followed her. They quickly appeared above the sea and continued rushing forward. Ahead of them, as far as they could see, was a sky covered with dark clouds, being lit up by thunder and lightning. "Is that place Juku Waters?" The half-saint among the black-robed men that were chasing them narrowed his eyes sharply. In this world, there were many dangerous places formed by nature. Juku Waters was one of such places in the Divine Land. But it was more like a prison than a region, as the vast Divine Land was encased by it. Any expert that wanted to leave or enter the Divine Land had to pass through Juku Waters first. However, not everyone could make it through. The Juku Waters was so dangerous that normally, an expert below the Saint Realm had no chance to break through it. "They are escaping to the Juku Waters." The black-robed men's expressions all changed. The Juku Waters was a forbidden area to them since they were only in the Yang Void Realm. If they entered the region, they would almost definitely die. With no chance of surviving the chase, the lady and the purple-haired man chose to test their luck in the Juku Waters. It was the best choice they could make right now. "After them. Don't let them enter the waters," the half-saint ordered grimly, coldness shining in his eyes as he began moving faster. Yet, before the lady and the purple-haired man could enter the waters, something strange suddenly happened. The clouds that covered the Juku Waters began to separate at an amazing speed. The whole region seemed like it was being split from the center, along with the disappearance of the clouds and lighting. Where the clouds had parted, an unblocked path led directly to a black figure who was drawing closer slowly. "This?" The lady and the black-robed men were all startled. "This man walked out of the waters?" one black-robed man shouted. "The Juku Waters are full of danger, but he safely broke through it by simply splitting the clouds. He's at least in the Saint Realm." "This is the Divine Land?" Jian Wushuang, the black-dressed figure carrying a long sword on his back, exited the Juku Waters. Starting from the Nanyang continent, he had crossed 3 continents and finally arrived at the Divine Land. It had taken him a year and 3 months. Standing up in the air, Jian Wushuang looked around, gaining a sense of the surroundings. The spiritual qi here is so pure. That was his first impression of the Divine Land. The spiritual power in the Divine Land was 10 times richer than the Nanyang continent. This land was indeed the core of the world. No wonder it was home to so many top experts. The resources here were incomparable to that of the Nanyang continent. In the next instant, Jian Wushuang noticed the lady and the others standing in front of him. "People of the Divine Land?" Looking at them, Jian Wushuang smirked. When Jian Wushuang looked at the lady and the others, they stared back at him. This man parted the clouds and made his way here. He must be an expert of the Saint Realm, probably a newcomer from outside of the continent. If he was willing to help, there would be no need for me to risk going into the waters. An idea quickly crossed the lady's mind. She stepped forward and said to Jian Wushuang, "I'm Lin Lan from the Lin family. Please help me and we shall be greatly appreciative." Her words dazed the black-robed men, and they immediately looked toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang frowned. His rich experience told him that the lady and the man with her were being chased. They currently had no other way to save themselves besides asking him for help. The Lin family? Jian Wushuang showed a pondering smile. Since I just arrived in this land, I will need a place to stay. Perhaps the Lin family would be a good choice. Having made up his mind, Jian Wushuang cast cold look towards the black-robed men. "Do you guys want to leave on your own? Or do you want me to make you leave?" Jian Wushuang said indifferently to them. Under the masks, the black-robed men's faces became gloomy. "Sir, you have nothing to do with our matters. You don't necessarily have to get yourself involved." The half-saint who was leading them frowned and said, "Yes, you're right. But I simply don't like you," Jian Wushuang said directly. What he said was true. He felt disgusted by what those men were wearing. Their black robes and masks reminded him of Blood Feather Tower. They were dressed exactly the same as the assassins from Blood Feather Tower. "Sir." The leader tried to say something else. However, Jian Wushuang stopped him, then lifted 3 fingers and said, "I'll count to 3. Leave before then or stay here forever. 1. Jian Wushuang's emotionless voice reverberated through the air. All the black-robed men were filled with rage and despair. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they still might die with a single stroke from the man standing in front of them. He had walked out of the Juka waters and was above the Saint Realm, whereas they were only at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. 2. Jian Wushuang continued. "Let's go," the leading black-robed man ordered. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to leave. "Thanks for your help, sir. I'll remember this. May I have your name?" the lady asked after black-robed men left. "Swordsman," said Jian Wushuang, still choosing to use this pseudonym. "Swordsman?" Lin Lan smiled and continued. "If I'm not mistaken, you're from outside of the continent, and it's your first time visiting the Divine Land." "You're right." Jian Wushuang nodded. "The Divine Land is vast yet dangerous. Since it's your first visit, I guess you don't have a place to stay yet. If you don't mind, you can follow me to my family. Though it's not big, it still holds a place in Iron Saber territory, and you'll be our distinguished guest there. What do you say?" Lin Lan asked. "Oh," Jian Wushuang blinked. Her idea appealed to him. He was a newcomer in the Divine Land, and what he needed was exactly that, a place to stay while he found his footing so he could make future plans. Jian Wushuang took her advice, following her and Lei Yun to their home. As soon as they arrived, a lot of people from the Lin family came out to meet them, with a slender elder leading them. Catching sight of the elder, Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. A Saint Realm expert? The elder came up to the gate, but when he saw Lin Lan, a strange expression appeared on his face, followed by a gentle smile. Then he said, "Miss, you're back. Uncle Zong." Lin Lan replied to him with a cold look. "Why is it only you and Lei Yun? Where are Lei Hao and the others?" The slender elder Lin Zong asked in confusion. "There." Lin Lan's expression changed a bit. "We encountered an attack during our trip. They were killed by the attackers while protecting Miss," Lei Yun said in a low voice. "What?" Lin Zong appeared surprised and then angrily growled. "Who the hell attacked you? How dare they?" "Uncle Zong, do you really have no idea who those guys were?" Lin Lan glanced at Lin Zong and asked coldly. "How could I know that?" Lin Zong answered while shaking his head. Then he smiled gently and continued. "Luckily, you made it back safely, even though Lei Hao and the other 2 were not as lucky." After saying this, he headed inside the house. Following behind Lin Lan, Jian Wushuang sensed something fishy about the discussion, but he kept silent. "Well, this friend is?" Lin Zong looked toward Jian Wushuang. He is swordsman, Lin Lan replied. Without him, I wouldn't have survived the attack. Swordsman? Never heard of him. Lin Zong raised his eyebrows. Of course, you couldn't have heard of him since he just arrived here from outside of the continent, Lin Lan explained. Oh, I see. Lin Zong smiled silently, then said, Since you've saved our miss, sir, come on in with me. Thanks, Jian Wushuang said and nodded, but snorted inwardly. A moment earlier, when Lin Zong stared at him, Jian Wushuang caught a gloomy glint in his eyes. From this, Jian Wushuang could tell that Lin Zong must have had something to do with the attack. The moment Jian Wushuang stepped into the mansion, he sensed the obscure aura of 7 experts in the Saint Realm. Plus Lin Zong, there was a total 8 Saint Realm experts in the Lin family. The Divine Land is indeed a place of experts. Even in an ordinary family, there are so many Saint Realm experts. Jian Wushuang gasped inwardly in admiration. Experts of the Saint Realm were rare in the Nanyang continent. They were also the strongest. But, in Divine Land, they were nothing special. The first family Jian Wushuang met had 8 of them, no less than the number in a top sect from Nanyang. Jian Wushuang followed Lei Yun to a yard. Mr. Swordsman, Miss Lanner told me to give you this. She thought you might need it. Lei Yun gave Jian Wushuang an interspatial ring. Thanks. Jian Wushuang accepted the ring and began to read the information contained in it about the Divine Land. It took Jian Wushuang half a day to read all the information, and he could not help gasping in admiration. The Divine Land really is great. Nanyang continent is no match for it. The vast Divine Land was full of experts in the Inyang Void Realm, with a good amount of experts in the Saint Realm. Moreover, the division of the two places was totally different. In the Nanyang continent there were sects and dynasties, together they constituted the continent. However, the Divine Land had neither of those. Instead, it had factions led by top experts and families of different sizes. The Lin family, where Jian Wushuang was currently staying, was a medium-sized family in the Iron Saber territory. The territory was large, and Jian Wushuang reckoned that it was as vast as the whole Nanyang continent. In this territory, there were 6 large families, dozens of medium-sized families, and countless small families. In Jian Wushuang's mind, there had to be many more Saint Realm experts in the 6 large families than in a medium-sized family like the Lin family, that already possessed 8 such experts. Besides that, there was also a Supreme Lord who could command everyone in the territory, even the 6 large families, and was said to be an expert above the peak of the Saint Realm. In the Divine Land, one territory is as insignificant as a small empire in Nanyang continent, but its lord is an expert above the Saint Realm. How amazing! Jian Wushuang praised it. It was clearly written in what he read. The vast Divine Land was filled with countless territories like the Iron Saber territory. In his eyes, even one territory in the Divine Land was as large as the whole Nanyang continent. Therefore, the scale of the Divine Land was countless times larger than the Nanyang continent. Too vast. The Divine Land is too damn vast. Jian Wushuang couldn't suppress his shock. In the Divine Land, territory was indeed the smallest scale. Above that was the domain, and above the domain was the realm. In total, there were 9 realms and 81 domains. All the domains and realms were under the top experts' control, and those people were addressed as the 9 sovereigns and the 81 marquis. Each king controlled one realm. Each marquis controlled one domain that contained dozens and even hundreds of territories. In addition to the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis, the Divine Land was also home to 3 supreme experts, known as the 3 ancestors. Individually, they were known as the Holy Ancestor, the Spirit Ancestor, and the Stone Ancestor. The 3 were regarded as people of supremacy, and their factions made up the 3 hegemons. 3 ancestors. While reading through the information on the ancestors, a complex feeling filled Jian Wushuang. He was a descendant of the Sword Ancestor's bloodline. At his peak, the Sword Ancestor was on an equal footing with the 3 ancestors. His bloodline was once an overlord in the Divine Land, but after his death, due to an unknown reason, his bloodline lost its strongest support and was eliminated by another overlord. The other overlord was among the 3 ancestors, who are now the three ancestors who stand at the top in the divine land. Zhou Xiu was right. Jian Wushuang looked serious. I was the strongest person in the Nanyang continent. But in the divine land, I'm nothing. Knowing that even the lord of a territory was above the saint realm, he couldn't imagine how strong the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis were. Also, how strong are the 3 ancestors? Looks like my cultivation still has a long way to go. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly but was not discouraged. No one was born to be an expert. Only difficulties and hardships could create a strong person. As Jian Wushuang continued studying the information, he heard a boom. An energy wave suddenly rose from the direction of the mansion, causing a stir in the Lin family. It's Lei Yun, standing by Jian Wushuang, was surprised when he felt the energy fluctuation. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang looked in the direction of the boom. It's Miss Lanner trying to break through again. Lei Yun looked terrible. Jian Wushuang gave him a curious expression. Isn't a breakthrough considered a good thing? Even if she fails, she can gain more experience for the next breakthrough. It does no harm at all. Mr. Swordsman, you may not know this, but Miss Lanner is different from others. A breakthrough is a good thing to others but a disaster to her, Lei Yun explained. A disaster? Jian Wushuang was astonished. I'll tell you later. I have to find Miss Lanner first. After saying this, Lei Yun rushed towards the energy wave. Jian Wushuang stood up, but his expression was weird. A breakthrough a good chance to others but a disaster to her? I'd like to see what kind of disaster it could be. He immediately flew towards the energy wave, filled with curiosity. When he arrived above Lin Lan's yard, the energy wave had already subsided. Besides Lei Yun and him, there were also many experts and disciples of the Lin family watching as well. They stared at Lin Lan with a pitying look. Jian Wushuang looked toward Lin Lan as well, but when he saw her terrible state, he was shocked. He noticed that her aura was weakening. Yes, it was weakening. She failed the breakthrough. But, even worse than that, her aura started weakening, and her realm was regressing. When he first met her at Juka Waters, she was in the initial Yang Void Realm, but due to her unsuccessful breakthrough this time, she fell back to the peak of the Yin Void Realm, then the exceptional Yin Void Realm, before finally stopping in the profound Yin Void Realm. It was not until this moment that her breathing calmed down. An unsuccessful breakthrough results in a falling back 3 levels? Jian Wushuang was really horrified. He had never heard or seen such a thing. Unbelievable! In the air above the yard, many members of the Lin family were watching and gasping as Lin Lan fell to the profound Yin Void Realm from the initial Yang Void Realm. Sure enough, Miss Lanner is weaker than before. Even worse, she fell back 3 levels this time. Tisk tisk. She might be the only in the whole divine land who becomes much weaker because of a breakthrough. Who would have thought that the most peerless genius of the Lin family to appear in 100 years would fall into such a miserable situation in only short 2 years? I heard that Master has decided to marry her to Luo Hai, the great elder's son. Luo Hai? That notorious playboy? The same discussion about the girl could be heard from every direction. Standing in the air, Jian Wushuang and Lei Yun didn't miss any single word of those undisguised comments. Lei Yun looked grave and quivered. He seemed to be controlling his anger. As for Jian Wushuang, he wore an odd expression while listening to the comments. In the yard, Lin Lan's breath slowly settled down. However, she was trembling, her face twisted, and her eyes said that she wouldn't take her defeat lying down. She wanted to howl and lash out, but she finally suppressed the desire. Gnashing her teeth, she headed to her room with her head down. Let's go back too. The people up in the airside and left. Soon, only Jian Wushuang and Lei Yun still remained. Lei Yun, what's wrong with your miss? Jian Wushuang frowned and asked. He had never heard of someone falling back 3 levels after an unsuccessful breakthrough. Lei Yun showed a complex expression and sighed after a long while. It's a long story. I'm not in a hurry. Let's get down first, Jian Wushuang said. He was really curious about it. After they returned to Jian Wushuang's yard and took seats by a stone table, face to face, Lei Yun started to tell the story. Mr. Swordsman, you might not know, but Miss Lanner was the #1 genius in our family 2 years ago. The #1 genius? Jian Wushuang was dazed. How could the #1 genius end up like this? Miss Lanner was extremely gifted. She started cultivating at 6 and condensed her primordial gold core at 10. At 14, she reached the yin-yang void realm. Lei Yun continued. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang was even more dazed. She started cultivating at 6, condensed her primordial gold core at 10, and reached the yin-yang void realm at 14? Is she really a human? In a small empire of the Nanyang continent, condensing a primordial gold core at 20 made someone an absolute genius. Reaching the yin-yang void realm by 30 was considered an achievement that only top geniuses were capable of. Like Jian Wushuang himself, he was recognized as a top genius, but even he condensed his primordial gold core at 17. In respect to this, he could not hold a candle to Lin Lan. Condensing a primordial gold core at 10 was an impossible thing in the Nanyang continent. Richly endowed by nature, the Divine Land provides much better resources to warriors than the Nanyang continent, where kids start cultivating at 12. However, in the Divine Land, they start cultivating at a much younger age, some even as early as 6. Jian Wushuang sighed inwardly. The difference between the two lands was like heaven and earth. After reaching the yin-yang void realm at 14, Miss Lanner continued making progress at an amazing speed. When she was 18, she reached the peak of the yang void realm and was only a step away from the saint realm, Lei Yun added. At that time, she was the most talented person in our family, as well as the whole Iron Saber territory. She was respected by everyone and was an example to the youngsters. But everything changed when she was 18. That year, she suffered an attack from a black-robed man in the Saint Realm while she was outside tempering herself. The man was stronger, so she was no match for him. He caught her, but not to kill her. Instead, he poisoned her with some kind of witch poison. Witch poison? Jian Wushuang was curious. Yes, a very special kind of witch poison. It took root in her body and only attacks when she tries to break through a bottleneck. As a result, she always fails to break through, and her cultivation even regresses. Lei Yun's voice became low. It has been 2 years since she was poisoned. During this period of time, she has tried to break through 3 times. In her first attempt, she tried to reach the Saint Realm from the peak of the Yang Void Realm, but she failed and fell back 1 level to the exceptional Yang Void Realm. In the second attempt, 1 year ago, she struggled to return to the peak of the Yang Void Realm, but still failed. That time, she fell behind 2 levels back to the initial Yang Void Realm. Today, she made her 3rd attempt, but just as you saw, she fell back 3 levels. During these 2 years, falling from the peak of the Yang Void Realm to the profound Yin Void Realm, Miss Lanner has experienced falling from the highest point in her life to the lowest. Hearing those words, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but be moved. How could the #1 genius of the Lin family become what she is now just because of a witch poison? Can't she get rid of that poison? Jian Wushuang asked. It's quite difficult. Lei Yun shook his head and continued. After she was initially poisoned, she was still a peerless genius in our family and was highly favored. We asked several experts and alchemists for help, at a high cost, in an attempt to clear the poison from her body. But it didn't work out. We even managed to have her treated by an expert at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. But there was still nothing the expert could do. Oh! Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In fact, if Miss Lanner hadn't tried to make a breakthrough, the poison wouldn't have been activated. In such a case, though she might not enhance her strength, she could avoid a regressing. Alas, she was too stubborn. Lei Yun let out a sigh. She was not reconciled to be stuck at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Therefore, although she knew that her cultivation might regress if she tried to break through, she never gave up trying. She took every chance she had during the past 2 years, and she tried 3 times. Even now, she is still persistent. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help sighing. A peerless genius with unlimited potential could not improve her strength, and even became weaker, just because of this witch poison. No matter who it was, they would not accept this destiny. 2 years ago, when Miss Lanner was still the top genius, The Lin family regarded her as a treasure. But in the past 2 years, her position in the family has become lower and lower. Even the master slowly became indifferent to her. Not long ago, in order to make a connection with the Luo family, the Lin family even decided to marry Miss Lanner to Luo Hai. Lei Yun continued. That Luo Hai, however, is a famous playboy, who acts in a tyrannical manner by virtue of his father's position as the great elder of the Luo family. He is notorious in the entire Iron Saber territory, and I've heard that he already has 3 wives and 9 concubines. It will really be a tragedy if Miss Lanner has to marry him. Your lady, even if her strength has regressed, is still your lord's daughter. Is your lord willing to marry her to Luo Hai? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Why wouldn't he be willing? Lei Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Our master cultivates throughout the year. Most family affairs are decided by the first madam, who is not Miss Lanner's natural mother, so she treats her badly. Lin Yu, the other lady in the Lin family, who is the first madam's natural daughter, has always regarded Miss Lanner as a thorn in her side. That pair of mother and daughter are eager to see Miss Lanner die. Miss Lanner was hunted last time, probably because this pair ordered it. 2 years ago, Miss Lanner fell victim to the witch poison by a black-robed man. I'm afraid it also had something to do with the mother and daughter. When Lei Yun said this, his face became extremely cold. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. It's no wonder that when I first entered the Lin family, there was something wrong with Lin Zong's expression. It seems that Lin Zong belongs to the first madam's side. Doesn't he? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, that Lin Zong has followed the lead of the first madam for a long time, said Lei Yun with a heavy nod. Anyway, they belong to the same family, and they are even half-sisters. How could she acted so cruelly? Jian Wushuang asked and sighed. Jealousy. Lei Yun looked up and said, Miss Lanner is very talented, so she is seen as the real phoenix among the people. Although Lin Yu has good talent, she is inferior to Miss Lanner. Since childhood, Lin Yu has been consistently crushed by Miss Lanner in all aspects. Naturally, she became very jealous. Really? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In 3 days, there will be a hunt within the family, after which the master should formally announce Miss Lanner's marriage, said Lei Yun. After hearing Lei Yun's story, Jian Wushuang also secretly felt sorry. Jian Wushuang's expression turned odd. Witch poison. My heavenly creation skill is incredible. It was able to swallow and refine Lang Rushuang's icy heart poison, which can be called the strongest poison known to man. As for the witch poison, could I refine it as well? The night was as black as ink. Inside the huge courtyard, Lin Lan, dressed in a blue robe, was practicing her swordsmanship alone, with a long sword in her hand. Following the path of her long sword, one bright sword light after another flew out into the dark night. These sword lights were extremely fast and unusually powerful. Up above the courtyard stood Jian Wushuang, with a long sword on his back, quietly watching Lin Lan. Yet the other did not notice his existence at all. Watching Lin Lan practice her swordsmanship over and over again, Jian Wushuang could feel a sense of stubbornness forming between her eyebrows. She a lot like me, Jian Wushuang murmured softly. He lost himself while watching Lin Lan. He could see his past self in Lin Lan. Many years ago, when he was even younger, he suffered humiliation due to his inability to condense spiritual power in the Marquis Mansion. At that time, he was just like Lin Lan. He refused to be belittled or give up. He desperately wanted to condense spiritual power. For this goal, he put in countless times more effort than ordinary people. Finally, he succeeded. Lin Lan's experience was similar to his, yet it was even more miserable and desperate, but she also refused to give up. She's a good girl. Her talent in sword principle is also very good. Jian Wushuang secretly nodded, and then the corners of his mouth slightly warped. Inside the courtyard, Lin Lan was still practicing her swordsmanship, but at this moment a light voice came from her side. Practicing alone here is a bit too boring. Eh? Lin Lan's face turned solemn. She stopped and looked at the source of the voice, where she immediately found Jian Wushuang. Mr. Swordsman. Lin Lan's expression became softer. Jian Wushuang smiled, then waved his hand. He took a branch from the tree beside him, pointed it at Lin Lan and said, "Your swordsmanship is not bad. How about competing with me?" "Compete with you?" Lin Lan was stunned. Then she glanced at the branch in Jian Wushuang's hand, heavily nodded and said, "Then, please instruct me, Mr. Swordsman." "Begin," Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Chew! Lin Lan's body suddenly shot forward like a sharp arrow, followed by a thrilling howling sound, while a cold sword light stabbed towards Jian Wushuang. At the same time, Lin Lan's spirit power reaching its pinnacle, causing the attack to become faster. Her swordsmanship is really good, and she has comprehended the origin. What's more, is it the world origin? Even though Jian Wushuang was surprised, he slowly swung his branch. "You lost." An indifferent voice was heard. Lin Lan was shocked and looked at the branch in front of her. It was pointing at her chest. Lin Lan's reaction speed was extremely fast, so she clearly remembered what happened just now. She had just attacked, but Jian Wushuang easily sidestepped her attack. Then he just stepped forward, drawing closer to her, followed by a stabbing motion. A simple move, but it was too fast for Lin Lan to dodge. What was even more marvelous was that Jian Wushuang didn't use any spiritual power, yet he still beat her easily. That sword move. Lin Lan recalled the sword move that Jian Wushuang just displayed. A very ordinary and simple sword move, but it gave her the feeling that it contained the whole world. It was incomparably abstruse and far beyond her comprehension. Your understanding of sword principle is not weak either. In addition, your comprehension of world origin is very high. You could have definitely avoided my attack. Jian Wushuang threw the branch aside and said lightly, "Unfortunately, you are too discomposed. It should either be because of the experiences over these last 2 years, or the fact that you will marry Luo Hai as soon as the family hunt ends in 3 days. But it has made your heart anxious. Mr. Swordsman knows about my past." Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang. "Lei Yun told me." Jian Wushuang nodded. "As for the witch poison, I might be able to resolve it." "What?" Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang in a surprise. "I only said it was possible, but I am not sure," Jian Wushuang said. He had confidence in the heavenly creation skill, but there were exceptions in everything, so he was not sure. Lin Lan took a deep breath. Then she looked at Jian Wushuang again. Plop! Lin Lan was kneeling directly in front of Jian Wushuang. "I beg you, Mr. Swordsman, please remove the witch poison. I, Lin Lan, am willing to be your follower for the rest of my life," Lin Lan said in a serious manner. "Follower?" Jian Wushuang was stunned. He knew what being a follower meant. It was equivalent to master and servant. In the vast divine land, some top experts occasionally had 1 or 2 followers around them. Lin Lan, in order to get rid of the witch poison, was even willing to become Jian Wushuang's follower. It could be imagined how much the witch poison had tortured her. "Forget about being my follower." Jian Wushuang shook his head and continued. "From the time I started practicing swordsmanship, until now, I have never had a disciple. If you are willing, you can become my first personal disciple starting today." "Personal disciple?" Lin Lan immediately became pleased by hearing this. Then, she respectfully kowtowed to Jian Wushuang. Pong! 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 Having kowtowed consecutively 3 times, Lin Lan got up and said, "Disciple Lin Lan pays her respects to master." Jian Wushuang could not help but smile. He had been alone since the beginning of his cultivation. Now he finally had a disciple. Moreover, Jian Wushuang was very fond of this disciple. It was not only because Lin Lan was very much like him and had similar experiences as him. The most important part was Lin Lan's temperament. "I'd rather die than surrender." In addition, Lin Lan had excellent talent in both cultivation and sword principle. Moreover, the origin she comprehended was the world origin. He was satisfied with Lin Lan in all aspects. Naturally, he could accept her as a disciple. "Get up." Jian Wushuang waved his hand. "Yes." Lin Lan got up with a very humble attitude. Lin Lan also felt quite blessed to be Jian Wushuang's personal disciple. Although she did not know how powerful Jian Wushuang's strength was, she had just competed with him and he had defeated her in a single strike, without using any spiritual power. This level of ability alone was enough to make Lin Lan completely admire him. Jian Wushuang sat down on the rock bench beside him, while Lin Lan also sat in front of him and stretched out her arms. Jian Wushuang held out his hands and placed them on Lin Lan's wrists. A stream of spiritual power entered Lin Lan's body through the pores on her wrists and began exploring her body. It only took a moment for him to find the witch poison that was hidden in Lin Lan's body. Oh my God! He was looking at the dark black witch poison that was hiding in Lin Lan's lower abdomen, which had a parasitic relationship with her dantian. Jian Wushuang could not help admiring it. It's like a parasite that feeds on the spiritual power within her dantian, and it can be said that it has integrated with her dantian. It is impossible to completely dispel the witch poison unless breaking her dantian. It's no wonder so many experts and alchemists could do nothing about this witch poison. Master, is there a way? Lin Lan was nervously looking at Jian Wushuang, with some expectation. Be patient, Jian Wushuang said while smiling slightly. Don't resist, Jian Wushuang ordered. Then a steady stream of spiritual power directly poured from Jian Wushuang's hands into Lin Lan's body and gathered at her dantian. Once it had accumulated to a certain level, the spiritual power immediately headed towards the dark black witch poison. The witch poison could not be separated from Lin Lan's dantian, nor could it be forcibly removed. Therefore, Jian Wushuang's only choice was to try to refine it while it was still in Lin Lan's body. However, the refinement went much smoother than that of the icy heart poison. Although the witch poison's parasitic method is a somewhat special, its toxicity is vastly inferior to Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. In only a moment, most of the witch poison in Lin Lan's dantian had been refined by him. Half an hour later, the witch poison had been completely refined by him, at which point he suddenly stopped wielding his spiritual power. Puff! Lin Lan directly spat out a mouthful of black blood, which was all that remained after the witch poison had been refined. Your witch poison is gone, Jian Wushuang said in a cool way. Hearing this, Lin Lan was stunned for a moment. Here, this is an elixir that is originally used to restore strength. Take it and try circulating your spiritual power. Jian Wushuang passed Lin Lan a brown elixir. Without any doubts, Lin Lan accepted the brown elixir and immediately took it. Then she sat down beside him. A moment later, a great aura of spiritual power began to spread from Lin Lan's body, increasing at an amazing speed. Lin Lan's cultivation, which had fallen to the level of the profound In Void realm today, had begun to improve. From the profound In Void realm to the exceptional In Void realm, then the peak of the In Void realm, after which she started trying to enter the initial Yang Void realm. 2 hours later, Lin Lan's breath slowly calmed down. At this moment, her spiritual power had recovered to the profound Yang Void realm. She was now 1 level higher than she was earlier today when her cultivation began to regress. Sure enough, my witch poison has been completely removed. Lin Lan opened her eyes, which now contained a flash of ecstasy. Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang. Then she knelt on the ground once again and solemnly said, "Thank you for giving me this second chance, Master. Get up." Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Lin Lan stood up, and her state of mind slowly regained its calm, but there was still a faint trace of joy in her eyes. Your cultivation had already reached the peak of the Yang Void realm before. It was only because of the witch poison that you regressed, so it should not be difficult to completely recover. Here are 3 pills that are useful for restoring your cultivation. For the next 3 days, you should swallow 1 pill every day. In 3 days, your strength should be completely restored, Jian Wushuang said. In the past, he had destroyed the Holy Emperor Palace and killed the 4 Holy Masters by himself. Hence, the countless treasures accumulated in the Holy Emperor Palace over the thousands of years had fallen into his hands, among which there were various elixirs and pills. The pills given to Lin Lan were all second grade and of great value. Thank you so much, Master. Lin Lan pleasantly accepted the pills. I heard that your Lin family will have a hunt in 3 days? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Yes. Lin Lan solemnly nodded and said, "Our Lin family holds a hunt every year. Not long ago, the senior family members decided to marry me to Luo Hai of the Luo family. This matter should be announced at the hunt." "Oh!" Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows. Then he stood up and walked slowly towards his courtyard. Lin Lan looked closely at Jian Wushuang's back. Only when Jian Wushuang was about to disappear completely from her sight did a cold voice reach her ears. "Just do whatever you want to do. Your master will take care of everything, even if the sky begins to fall." Hearing this, Lin Lan's eyes gleamed and she immediately clenched her fists. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Even though it was early in the morning, the entire Lin family was very busy. The annual hunt was a big day for the Lin family. Naturally, that day was very boisterous. Even the rarely seen master would be present today. A large number of Lin family disciples gathered in the martial arts practice field, while the top senior experts of the Lin family sat in the front section of the grandstand. Although Jian Wushuang was not a member of the Lin family, he still had a seat in the grandstand because he had entered the Saint Realm. Among the disciples, Lin Lan's eyes were cold and clear. She stood there, carrying a long sword on her back, like an iceberg. Many of the Lin family disciples in the area were looking at her strangely. "I heard that this Lin Lan's cultivation level fell again 3 days ago, back to the profound void realm. How dare she still take part in the family hunt? If I were her, I would just stay at home and wait to marry Luo Hai. She is a genius with a proud heart." Genius? That was many years ago. Many disciples of the Lin family were whispering to each other. Although their voices were low, Lin Lan could still hear them. Lin Lan's had an indifferent expression on her face as she turned a blind eye to these disciples. Hey, my dear sister. I heard that you failed your breakthrough 3 days ago, and that your cultivation level greatly decreased again." An obviously sarcastic voice was heard. Lin Lan turned to look at the source of the voice. It was a beautiful purple-clothed lady with good facial features and a very enchanting figure. However, it was a shame. There was a hint of darkness and coldness in her eyes, which had a negative effect on her overall temperament. And this person was Lin Lan's half-sister, Lin Yu. Seeing Lin Yu, a hint of icy coldness appeared in Lin Lan's eyes, but she still did not speak. "My good sister, hasn't your cultivation level fallen to the profound void realm?" I reached the peak of the Yang void realm when I was 18 years old. You were once praised as the top genius of the Lin family, so it's really pitiful to fall into such a situation," Lin Yu said casually, then lightly sighed. "I think it would be better if you just stay in your room and wait for your marriage to that Luo Hai. He has a bad personality, but he's quite good in other respects, and his father is the great elder of the Luo family. If you marry him, it will be regarded as one last contribution to our Lin family. It's like recycling trash. You are so vicious. Whether you can marry someone in the future, I'm afraid, is still a problem." Lin Lan glanced at Lin Yu. Li Yu was stunned. A flicker of haze appeared in her eyes. Lin Lan's words were like rubbing salt in her wound. She was already nearly 30 years old and had loved many young talents. Unfortunately, none of them cared for her at all. "Even if I never get married, I would still be better off than someone who is marrying Luo Hai. I heard that Luo Hai once had 3 wives and 9 concubines, but now only has 2 wives and 6 concubines. It's rumored that the missing wife and concubines were killed by him in bed. My good sister, you mustn't follow the footsteps of that one wife and those 3 concubines." Lin Yu smiled grimly and said no more. At that moment, at the very center of the grandstand, there was a man in a loose robe and a graceful woman. The loose-robed man, who looked gaunt, was the master of the Lin family, and also Lin Lan's father, Lin Xian. As for that graceful woman, she looked like Lin Yu to some extent. She seemed to be Lin Yu's mother, and also the first madam of the Lin family. "Let's start," Lin Xian commanded. Lin Zong, who was standing at the front of the grandstand, nodded, and then began to host the hunt. The rules of the Lin family's hunt were very simple. The disciples would go to the Blue Cloud Mountains near their mansion, kill some spirit beasts, and bring back their bodies. The hunt would last for half a day, and the ranking would be decided based on the number of bodies and the strength of the beasts that were brought back. The top 3 would get corresponding rewards. The numerous disciples of the Lin family, who were taking part in the hunt, quickly set off towards the Blue Cloud Mountains. Before leaving, Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang, who was seated in the grandstand. "Remember what I said before?" Jian Wushuang spoke softly. Although his voice was too low, Lin Lan could still understand what he said by reading his lips. Lin Lan nodded heavily, then headed for the Blue Cloud Mountains. As for the numerous high-level experts of the Lin family, as well as Jian Wushuang, they quietly waited at the martial arts practice field. "I have been in secluded cultivation for a long time, so I didn't know there was a guest in our family." "You are." Lin Xian noticed Jian Wushuang, who was a stranger, in the grandstand, so he couldn't help asking. "Swordsman," Jian Wushuang said in a cold voice, very indifferently. "Master, this Mr. Swordsman was invited by Miss Lan. Miss Lan met with danger when she was outside and Mr. Swordsman saved her," Lin Zong said on the side. "So that's how it is." Lin Xian raised his eyebrows and said politely, "Since you are a guest, we should entertain you well. If Mr. Swordsman needs anything, please do not hesitate to tell us." "Thanks," Jian Wushuang responded unenthusiastically. Lin Xian didn't say any more, but the first madam sitting next to him took a deep look at Jian Wushuang. Half a day passed quickly. "They're back." All the people in the grandstand were staring off into the distance, watching as the disciples of the Lin family rushed back through the air, quickly landing on the martial arts practice field, one after another. Most of these disciples were very tired. Obviously, they had done all they could in the past half-day. Only Lin Lan, however, looked very relaxed. There was not even a trace of blood on her body, and she looked extremely calm. The spirit beasts in the Blue Cloud Mountains were originally captured by the elders of the clan. The weakest ones were at the initial Yang Void Realm, but Lin Lan has fallen to the profound Yin Void Realm. I'm afraid that she didn't even have a chance to capture a single spirit beast once she arrived at the mountain. Is that why she looks so relaxed? Many of the surrounding Lin family disciples secretly laughed at Lin Lan when they saw her. "Come up one by one and take out the spirit beasts you have killed, as well as their spiritual cores," Lin Zong said in the martial arts practice field, speaking in a grand fashion. Immediately the disciples of the Lin family came forward, one after another, and took out the dead bodies of the spirit beasts they had hunted in the Blue Cloud Mountains for the last half of a day. Some took out 2 or 3 bodies, while some had as many as 6 or 7 spirit beast bodies. The strength of their spirit beasts, however, were all very ordinary. There were no bodies that attracted any kind of special attention. At this moment, Lin Yu stepped forward and waved her hand. Immediately, 9 dead spirit beasts appeared, one after the other, in the martial arts practice field. Moreover, none of the dead bodies of the spirit beasts were common. Among them, 8 were at the exceptional Yang Void Realm, while the remaining body was actually at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. There was a commotion when these dead spirit beasts appeared on the martial arts practice field. 9 spirit beasts, and one of them was even at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Truly worthy of Miss Yuer. Having killed so many spirit beasts in only half a day, Miss Yuer is definitely impressive. Among the young disciples in Lin family, Miss Yuer is definitely number 1. On the martial arts practice field, a large number of the Lin family disciples were speaking with admiration. The top experts of the Lin family were all smiling as they watched from the stands. "Yuer made a good performance," Lin Xian said as he smiled faintly, while the first madam, who was beside him, revealed a large and proud smile. Lin Yu stood on the martial arts practice field with an arrogant expression on her face. She looked at Lin Lan, only to find that Lin Lan had not even glanced at her. "Next," Lin Zong said. Lin Lan slowly stepped forward. Everyone turned to face her, but most of them were looking at her with disdain. In their eyes, even the weakest spirit beasts in the Blue Cloud Mountains were in the initial Yang Void Realm. Lin Lan, who was only in the profound Yin Void Realm, had no chance to hunt any of them. It would be her good luck to have even managed to kill a single spirit beast. "Miss Lanner," Show me the spirit beasts you killed. Lin Zong looked at Lin Lan with a smile, waiting to see her embarrassment. Lin Lan, who had an indifferent expression on her face, did not even spare a glance at those around her. With a wave of her hand, several dead spirit beasts immediately appeared on the ground of martial arts practice field. The huge dead spirit beasts that were piled up together formed a hill. Seeing the spirit beasts, Lin Zong, who was waiting to ridicule Lin Lan, was stunned. For a moment, everyone there was speechless. Altogether, Lin Lan had taken out 7 spirit beasts. It was not the number of the spirit beasts that made Lin Zong and other people speechless, but the aura released by these dead spirit beasts. Though dead, the beasts still gave off an extremely rich and violent aura. These 7 spirit beasts were all at the peak of the Yang Void realm. Everyone on the martial arts practice field was shocked. Impossible! Lin Yu was the first one to shout out. Even for her, it was her limit to kill 8 spirit beasts of the exceptional Yang Void realm and 1 at the peak of the Yang Void realm in only half a day. But Lin Lan killed 7 spirit beasts at the peak of the Yang Void realm. Although Lin Yu had killed 2 more spirit beasts than Lin Yan, the quality of the spirit beasts was inferior. How could Lin Lan manage to do that in only half a day? It was so doubtful and incredible. All the top experts in the stand began to stir. Jian Wushuang remained indifferent, but he still nodded slightly at the sight of the spirit beasts that Lin Lan had killed. 3 days ago, he had removed the witch poison in Lin Lan's body and then given her 3 elixirs to restore her cultivation. Now Lin Lan had regained her original level of cultivation, which was the peak of the Yang Void realm. Lin Lan also had good comprehension of the world origin and possessed many powerful sword skills. It was not difficult for her to kill 7 spirit beasts at the peak of the Yang Void realm in only half a day. Jian Wushuang was sure that Lin Lan did not use her full strength. Otherwise, she could have killed far more spirit beasts. The people on the martial arts practice field fell into a tumult. Looking at the dead spirit beasts, piled up in the form of a hill, Lin Zong suddenly turned gloomy and said, "Miss Lanner, you should know the rules of the hunt. You can only hunt using your own strength, and you cannot rely on external treasures. You must have killed these 7 spirit beasts with an external treasure, so your results are invalid." Hearing these words, the audience on the martial arts practice field burst into an uproar. Most of the Lin family disciples looked at Lin Lan with disdain. How could Lin Lan use an external treasure during the hunt? External treasure? After all, she was once the top genius of the family, so it wouldn't be surprising. She must have some external treasures, such as concealed weapons or some other treasures that can kill spirit beasts at the peak of the Yang Void realm. Isn't Lin Lan a genius? How can she be so shameless? Their discussions about her were full of mockery and disdain. Lin Yu even sneered. Hearing that, Lin Lan's face turned serious. She turned to Lin Zong and said, "Elder Lin Zong, without any evidence, you claim that I have used external treasures to kill these spirit beasts. Isn't that ridiculous? Ridiculous? How is it ridiculous?" Lin Zong glanced at her scornfully and replied to her without any sign of respect. Before Lin Lan could refute him, Jian Wushuang spoke leisurely from the stand. "Elder Lin Zong, you definitely have sharp eyes." The instant Lin Lan had taken out the spirit beasts, you could tell that she killed them with some external treasure. "I wonder whether you can tell me what kind of treasure Lin Lan used?" Jian Wushuang asked with a cold voice that reverberated throughout the martial arts practice field. Lin Zong frowned and looked at Jian Wushuang. "Mr. Swordsman, is there a problem?" "Problem? Of course." Jian Wushuang sneered and said, "So many people have shown you the spirit beasts they killed. Lin Yu also took out 9 spirit beasts. Why didn't you suspect that any of them killed the spirit beasts with external treasures?" Hearing that, Lin Zong's face fell. At this moment, the first madam, who was also in the stand, looked at Jian Wushuang and said coldly, "Mr. Swordsman, please remember your identity. You're only a guest of our family. You'd better sit there and watch quietly. Don't try to interfere with our internal affairs." "Is that so?" Jian Wushuang glanced at the first madam and Lin Xian, who sat silently beside her. Then, with a pondering smile on his face, he said, "You must be the first madam of the Lin family. I have heard that you're in charge of the Lin family. It seems that it's true. Mr. Swordsman, what is it that you are trying to say?" asked the first madam, with a streak of cold light flashing in her eyes. "You told me to remember my identity, so I also have to remind you of something." Jian Wushuang sat there, tapping his fingers on the armchair. Then, in a freezing voice, he said, "First madam, I will also remind you. Before you said that, you should have made sure to understand who you were talking to." The moment he finished speaking, a surge of killing intent, greater than anything they had ever seen before, began to radiate from him. His incredible killing intent soared into the sky and swept forward like a tsunami. Time and space seemed to be frozen for a moment, and the whole area became so deadly quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. It felt like the entire martial arts practice field was covered with a heavy frost.